All right. Just give me a second. I'm going to go ahead and edit this stuff, and then we're going to get going. So everybody hang tight. It's got the little quick editing, and we'll be good to go. Why this thing runs slow like this? All right, so everybody hang tight for a couple minutes. And we'll get going in a sec. There we go. To fix that sound, let me just do some editing real quick. Then we're good to go. Okay. Right. Almost there. All right. We're almost there, people. Just hang tight. Get started shortly. I'll run through some quick announcements. Hope everybody's good this evening. I know I am. All right, let's put today's date. I'm just editing in the video. You got to do this when you're using this StreamYard. Kind of like when you come on, which kind of sucks, but is what it is. Hold on. Just about done. Okay, there we go. All right, we are good. All right. All right, we got the editing done. Let me just get live on the Gram here. And then we will get started. All right. All right, this is coming up. Live. There we go. All right. want to welcome everybody. We are live on Instagram. We are live, obviously, here on YouTube. So before we begin, I'm just going to give it another couple minutes, give people some time to get here. Run through some quick announcements. Hold on, just open this chat here. Make sure we got that open there. All right. All right, so, all right, for the sake of time, fraternal blessings to all, greetings, peace, kumbaya. Let me stop. Let me run through some quick announcements just for the remainder of the month, quickly the classes, the upcoming classes. Again, for those that are Patreon members, tier 3 and up, you guys are good. You'll have access to everything I'm going to run through. I would encourage, again, to join the Patreon. Join the Patreon page. It will give you access to the monthly classes and the monthly ritual. Tier 3 gives you access to all of those. Okay. So what we have left for the remainder of this month, I just want to make sure I got the correct dates and times. So let me pull that up real quick so I don't butcher that. Hang tight. All right. Oh man, this thing's bugging out on me. Hold tight, hang tight. I need to sign in before. Shit. All right, it's coming up now. Just give me a sec. Almost there. All right. So what we have left for this month. So this upcoming Saturday, which is July 16th, 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we have the Sith Dark Side Alchemy and Philosophy class number 3. This will be, it's a good complement, as I was telling everybody in Saturday's class, it's a very good complement to your shadow work, right? Because Sith Dark Side Philosophy, or alchemy, as we know, alchemy is a concept or a term used for transformation or for change. So just to be clear, because I know some have asked about the Sith classes and the perspective of how I utilize it, right? I want to just be clear. It's not really, though I do, and you know, as a kid, I've always been a huge Star Wars fan, but I don't really focus on the movie aspect of it. I focus strictly on the Sith philosophy and how to use that as an archetype, as a whole system in your ritual and your spiritual work. So I focus more on the spiritual and the ritualistic aspect of it, just so we're clear. It's not really a memorabilia down Star Wars lane, just to be clear on that. For those that are taking the shadow work class, as I said, it's a great complement to your shadow work. And in addition, it's just, if you're doing work in general, it's just going to complement also what you're doing. The following Saturday, July 23rd, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the left-hand path Norse Mythology and Runes class number 2. We will start this class as we continue our study with the god Loki. And our continued study of the runes. And I'm showing people also how to use that system too, if you want to incorporate that in your spiritual work. And something I'm really excited about, on Friday, July 29th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the Rite of Set, which is going to be in perfect alignment with the birthday or feast day of Set according to the Cairo calendar in Egypt. And we'll be doing it the same day, which I'm glad it falls in line perfectly this year. So we have a whole ritual and rite prepared for Set. that's going to deal with different aspects of the God of chaos and storms, but also the God who makes order out of that chaos, right? That ritual will take place Friday, July 28th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also I want to put out there, as I've said before, we are now back to pretty much for the most part normal, where if you would like to come on a monthly basis and you're able to attend live here in South Florida, you're more than welcome to come. You just need to reach out to me in contact so we can set that up. So I am opening up the monthly rituals again, as I did prior, before this pandemic hit in early 20. You just need to reach out to me, do a brief screen, and make sure it's the right fit, et cetera, and then we go from there. So you are welcome to come on to any of the monthly rituals. Also, I would encourage you guys to check out Tier 3 on Patreon, patreon.com/Baniti. You see, I have all this information in short summarization running on the bottom of the screen. And join Tier 3. Tier 3 gives you access to the 3 monthly classes plus the ritual for $25 a month, as opposed to you can sign up individually for each class, but that is $56 a month. Doesn't make sense in my opinion. Either or, those are your two options. Everything on how to sign up individually is on all the platforms. It's here in the community section on YouTube. It's also on Primordial Chaos 9 on Instagram. Check us out over there too. Primordial Chaos on Facebook. Individual classes can be paid either by Cash App or they can be paid by PayPal. But again, I would encourage you to go to patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti, and join Tier 3. Much better value for your money. And as I've said before, I stand behind it. I don't think you're going to get what I give on a monthly basis there for that price. All right. So check that out. Also, if you're interested in spiritual readings, Klepothic demonic readings, Egyptian oracle readings, readings with Santa Muerte and the spirits of the dead, shadow work readings, which is always, again, as I said, a great place to start when you're not sure where you should begin, what type of ritual work you should be doing, etc. Shadow work reading is an excellent reading to do that. To see what deities or spirits you walk with. I do those type of readings too. Anyway, for a full list of readings, as it says at the bottom of the screen, shoot me an email at khnum19@gmail.com, and I will send you information on that. And then last but not least, Journey of the Black Adept, the 5th annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference, year number 5, is already set in stone. Starting August 1st, you can start paying and registering. As I've said, as a couple of weeks ago, we have the venue locked and reserved. Same venue we used last year. We'll be doing it at Cultural Expressions in the heart of beautiful downtown Hollywood, Florida, which if you're not familiar with Hollywood, Florida, it's the last city in Fort Lauderdale. It's right on the borderline of South Broward County, Fort Lauderdale, before you get into North Miami. It's right in the heart of downtown, 10-15 minutes from Fort Lauderdale Hollywood Airport. And there's an array of hotels, Airbnbs, restaurants. You're close to the beach, which we do work out at the beach every year. We do outdoor working. We got something great planned this year. Some stuff I already have given serious thought to, an initiatic type of ritual on the first night, but we'll explain that later down the road. So again, that itinerary, meet and greet on October 27th. That'll be day 1, 8 p.m. Like we did last year. We will meet, just socialize. Everybody will introduce each other. You can talk, get to know each other, get that all out of the way. So when we get to work the following morning at 9 a.m., from 9 to 4 on Friday and Saturday, and the itineraries time-wise are the same. So on Friday and Saturday from 9 to 4 p.m., there will be classes and presentations, workshops, etc. That'll go from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Friday and Saturday, the 28th and 29th. And then we break after 4, and we come back about 7:30, 8 o'clock, and we do a ritual working as a group on both of those nights, the 28th and the 29th. In between, there's always on both nights afterwards, if you decide, we always go out and get together, get a little food, have a little grub, have a little fun, a little socializing too. We try to make it a fun event, but also an event you can learn. And then on the last day, the 30th, Sunday, we finish up with an open question and answer discussion forum, which will go from noon to 4 p.m. And then that concludes the event. You can start registering now if you want, but officially I will start asking people so we can get that head count. Start signing up by the 1st. It will be available virtually, just the classes, not the rituals. It's too much going on. It's too much for me. And actually, I like to keep those special and those rituals in the group because there's so much going on. We keep this event as a very special and personal event because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in there. And not only that, we want to, I don't want to say protect the privacy of people because of anything spooky, but just to keep it on a private level to a degree. That's a little different when we do it on Patreon, and this is a little bit different. So you can attend virtually and have access to the classes all 3 days, all the classes and workshops and the question and answer discussion on Sunday, the 30th. All right. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. More likes, the channel and the video gets out and reaches more people. When you hit the subscription button or bell, make sure you hit that notification bell and get all notifications. All right, that pretty much does it for me for the announcements. All right, you see the title. So some stuff came to me as I was just, since Saturday's class, the shadow work class, we were talking about imagination. And then it stumped me across a book. From Saturday until about yesterday, there was a book that came out back in 04, 03. I'll give you guys that book. It's a book called The Cannabis Revelation, Stargate of the Gods and the Ark of Osiris, which was written by Philip Coppens. Right? I don't know if you could see the book. Let me see if I can pull it back. No, you probably can't see it. But again, it's Philip Coppens is the author, Philip. Last name is Coppens, Coppens, Philip Coppens. And again, the name of the book is The Cannabis Revelation, Canopus, The Cannabis Revelation, Stargate of the God. You just type in The Cannabis Revelation, it'll come right up. Again, the book's been out for 18, 19 years. I'm not sure. I'm sure. I haven't checked. I'm sure it's available somewhere. I would encourage you guys to get it. There's a very short section in there. Well, anyway, it got me thinking. We were talking about imagination in our shadow work. Imagination is important and key for a multitude of reasons because obviously when you're doing your shadow work, right, and you are trying to tap into, the potential or the capabilities that you have when you're doing spiritual or ritual work, correct? Imagination is key. But let's first start and come to the conclusion. And when I say the conclusion and the understanding, that imagination has been, or systematically, it's been targeted, from birth, from a young child, all throughout adolescent, teenager, adulthood to the present. It's constantly being targeted to be stripped and taken away from you, okay? They know if they steal your imagination, and we were talking about this on Saturday, and this is some of the things I want to share before I go into a short little thing I have prepared here. They know if they steal your imagination, they can steal your creativity, they can influence and indoctrinate you, because, for an example, when we look at the systems of religious indoctrination, for an example, briefly, they took your imagination away and they replaced it with their imagination. When I say their or they or the powers that be, I'm talking about all those who are systematically banding together for control and power. So that could be anybody that falls in that category, right? They have systematically stripped you of your imagination and your power to think and have instilled in you their imagination, their mythology, their fables, their tales, their stories, right? To the very point where it's accepted worldwide, most of these dogmas, as fact. to the point worldwide where people are fighting, killing each other over this. Wars are started over this, and sometimes used as an excuse to hide behind, right? So this is being done at a very early age, whether it's through religion, whether it's through entertainment, media, and now obviously nowadays with technology, social media, the computer, the internet, etc. So we know the power of our imagination connects us to our subjective consciousness, right? One thing we have to understand as practitioners, or whatever you want to call yourself, whatever floats your boat, occultist, spiritualist, left-hand path practitioners, whatever, those are all titles. They really don't mean anything. In order to tap into the full potential of your subjective consciousness, you must have a very vivid and powerful imagination. So we must understand, as spiritualists, occultists, how the subjective realm or consciousness works and how the objective realm or consciousness works. And a good practicing spiritualist or occultist knows there has to be harmony between the two, okay? There has to be some grounding there, okay? There has to be a good understanding of how you're supposed to work with both, because you have those, obviously, as I've said many times before, that will say, or those that are too subjective. And as I say, they're out there in cadet land, they're space cadets, or they're so spiritual. But what tends to happen is their everyday life is in shambles, right? And it's usually a form of escapism, right? It's usually a form of why they're not successful in their everyday life. So they think by being very spiritual and heavy and deep and out in the clouds 24/7, that they don't need to be successful. It's almost as an excuse to be a failure in their objective consciousness or objective realm, right? That's not the right approach. Then there's the reverse to that too, correct? There's those who are very, material or too caught up in the physical realm, right? That maybe they chase too much of things that are very objective in nature, right? And they're lacking on the spiritual side. So what's the answer? What's the solution to this, right? It's to find that fine line or harmony in between, right? Now, we have to also look at what gives us these perceptions and understanding is information, right? Information or intellect. Now, we know as practitioners on the past, when we look at the concept of Lucifer, the light bearer, right? Lucifer embodies light and darkness. What that represents is a Luciferian, an occultist, a spiritualist who understands the true manifestation of what Lucifer represents, knows that one has to go into that darkness to seek that knowledge or light, that intellect, right? And that's what we all essentially try to do on a daily basis. Well, you should be, that should be your goal, is knowledge of self, right? Having that knowledge of self so you can better yourself, so you can master yourself on all levels, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially. That's the goal. That should be the driving force while you are on this path. Not for all of the, sensationalism shit you see on the internet and in movies in Hollywood. Not because you want to put on black robes and play dark occultist and all this other shit, right? That's not the reason you should be here. I would hope that's not the reason why most people are here. Unfortunately, we do have armchair occultists, right? We do have posers, right? That unfortunately exists. It exists everywhere, not just here. It exists in all facets of life. We don't want to be posers, right? We want to be people, male and female, that put the knowledge that we are studying and learning, we want to put it into practice for the sole purpose of mastering ourselves, right? That's the difference of what we do. We don't just sit around and have heavy philosophical conversations and regurgitate shit and quote shit and sound heavy and deep and go on these trippy conversations and all that. That's not what this is about. We're living in a day and age of information, of results, right? And this is what this path is about. It's getting results. So one thing in understanding this is we have to understand ourselves and how information is processed, right? We have to understand, one, this false concept, as I've said many times before, that they call time, right? We have to also understand what reality is and what reality isn't, and how they are able to basically spoon feed us information at the drop of a dime, and that could be good or bad. So when we look at how the subconscious mind, right? When I talk about your imagination, which is connected to your mind, which is connected to energy, which is thoughts, right? But also how the mind picks up on those energy signals. And those energy signals are information. How is that understood, right? So this is going to get a little more scientifical tonight, right? We're going to get a little bit more scientifical to remove some of the spookism, but to get a better understanding of how we perceive things. And your perception and your reality and how you perceive things is going to determine how vivid your imagination is or is not. Now, we have this thing that they call, and many people have talked about this over the years, how information is sent and how we receive that information in our mind, right? Let's talk a little bit about that. We right now are on something called a computer, right? There's something on a computer we all know that's called Wi-Fi, right? And Wi-Fi or bandwidth, right, is conveyed through this technology they call Wi-Fi. And if we slow down really what Wi-Fi looks, and we slow down the vibration and frequency of it, it would almost look like energy being expanded. I'm just trying to use the best description I can. Energy or a force field that you see contracting and expanding. This is how they're able to send it out with the touch of a button, because it's frequency, it's sound, it's vibration. So they can get a large portion of information. They can get it to one spot quickly to the point where you can receive that information like they do on the hard drive or computer. It's no different. They can do that same thing with your brain, right? It's no different. And they do this in a multitude of ways, right? They do this consciously and unconsciously, right? When you're watching, as I said many times before, when you're watching TV or you're watching movies, especially if it's 3D and they have all this new technology, there's a certain amount of images or pixels that are on the screen, right? Well, especially with these new, why do you think they came out in the last 20 years or so, 15, 20 years, with these more highly technological TVs with these high pixels? Because those pixels, one, are throwing an X amount of images, and in those images are contained a multitude level of information. Your mind is processing how it sees it and perceives it, right? That's what pixels are. And this is why you see in the cameras on the phones, right? They're increasing the technology where they say, oh, this camera's got better pixels, right? If you Google the word, you'll see what I'm talking about, okay? And it's all technology used of how our mind receives these energy signals and how we interpret the information. Whether it's done through pixels, images going across the screen, and all those high-tech movie technology now they have, all these different ways they're able with a lot of the special effects and the computer imagery. So what we're not realizing is there's information being there, just like you would put information on a hard drive, right? There's information being stored in here. Now, some of it we're aware of, but some we're not. Some of it we don't access it until certain points. But that's really, if you had to look at how that's done, it's no different how they send Wi-Fi to a computer. They can send Wi-Fi straight to your brain. Now, this can strip and destroy your imagination if you are not able to perceive it correctly. Why do I say that? Because those whose pineal glands might be severely calcified, or you're going through serious states of calcification, first of all, you're not able to receive certain stages of that dark light consciousness, as we call it, that has its root in the stem of the brain, right? That sends, uses those highways or portals to send that information so you can register it and process it, right? So if you're a severely indoctrinated person, let's just say somebody who's very closed-minded, right? Somebody who's very programmed, and maybe somebody who's very stubborn and is not even interested in, hold on. I was going to send this to, I forgot. Let me see if I can get this over to Raven, if she's able to come in. Hold on. Yeah, so say you're somebody that's, again, even stubborn, closed-minded, doesn't even want to hear any information outside of whatever ideology they have chosen to accept as fact. I mean, it could be a religious person. It could just be somebody who's set in their ways, period, right? That is an easier person to indoctrinate and sell and program and feed them any bullshit that you want. We've all know this. If you ever talk to somebody that's very stubborn, closed-minded, it can be very frustrating, right? Well, now at this point, you should be at the point where you don't even waste your time with people like that, right? But we know we've all been down that road, right? You could be slapping somebody upside the head with common sense. I don't even want to just say facts, right? Because facts too, I know we use that word in undisputed truth, that also can be perceptive in nature, right? Because two people can look at the same thing and have totally different perspectives on it. And one person could say that they accept that as false, and the same person can look at the same thing and accept that as truth, right? Why is that? Because everybody's going to have their own perception of how they perceive things, right? Based on the images and information that they absorb through their subconscious mind, which also shapes, as I said earlier, or can be a destructive factor to your imagination. Now, we all know when you're doing rituals, when you're doing visualizations, when you're doing meditations, if you are a serious practitioner on this path, you know you need the power of your imagination, right? It is the Stargate or the porthole, right, to the void, the abyss, to the realm of what we call, whether you want to refer to them as demons, gods, goddesses, archetypes, whatever. The point being is that is your weapon. That is your most powerful tool. So there's been a concentrated effort, as I said earlier, to destroy that, to strip you of that through this systematic programming. So they know if they can control your mind by way of your thoughts and your emotions, then it's pretty much easy to get you, as I've said many times before, jump left, jump right, jump up, jump down. They basically want to control everything you do, from what you eat to how you get dressed, to where you shop, to what you buy, all these things we talked about last time. So if they can systematically eliminate any creativity, it's about full control. When you're doing visualization work, right? And this is where I see people that always talk about they struggle meditating. This comes up a lot. People that always talk about it's tough for them to do visualization exercises, and they always come up with the same things, right? There's always in that avenue of it's hard for me to focus, I can't concentrate. I'm always distracted. Well, as I've said before in the past, that's the sign of a disturbed soul and spirit, right? Because there's usually things going on in your life that is affecting that. Like some people who are afraid to meditate in silence and darkness, their true self starts to emerge. The real thoughts start to come to the surface. It's not that there's a boogeyman in the room, because we always used to think that as a kid. You get in a dark room, it gets quiet, it gets silent, spookiness sets in. That was part of a programming thing. No, it's the real you emerging in that silence and thought and darkness, the real thoughts. Some people can't get in tune in silence and darkness with their true thoughts, because in that silence and darkness, when things are slowed down, right, you'll find out in the beginning, as I've said many times before, and a lot of you, we've talked about this, you might struggle in the beginning if you're meditating in silence and darkness, because the conscious mind is always looking for something to cling on to. It needs to be entertained. It's like a kid. And automatically, when you get in that silence and darkness and stillness, right, it's, oh man, what's going on? Oh, I need something. Your conscious mundane self needs to grasp onto something, because that's where the insecurities and the fears start to kick in. Okay, that's where whatever, maybe you have some serious psychological traumas that are embedded through those fears, and sometimes that fear you're feeling is those true thoughts coming to the surface, right? So I did a video a while back. I'm going back to like 2014. It's called Psychological and Interplanetary Warfare. I think that went over a lot of people's heads. This is stuff I was, I went over some of this stuff years ago to get people in the mindset and the awareness of just how deep this is when we're talking about the subconscious mind and when we're talking about our imagination. When you're carrying out rituals, right? You need your visualization skills, because in those rituals, when you go into ritual work and you're creating a visual via your visualizations, via the power of your imagination, you're giving life, you're giving imagery. And here's the thing, whatever you have the power and the ability to create with your imagination is a reality to you on your subjective realm. And nobody can penetrate that unless you allow them to. So this is why we need to focus more. Everybody's always focused on this physical, external shit that's going on. That's the distraction, right? There's crazy shit going on out here right now. That's part of the distraction. If you saw recently, something I want to back up that I said a couple of shows back, and the proof came out. Okay, that shooting that happened in Texas a few weeks back, they just released, and I'm sure some of you saw it on the news, they just released a video of those cowardly cops running, standing around in that hallway. One cop was sanitizing his hands. This is all on video. They hear gunshots. You see some little fat cop running like a little punk. All standing around scared, not doing nothing. The sick part about it, everything I said now, was they're showing it on video. They were standing inside that building for over 40 minutes. Now remember, they lied. They first said they didn't go in, then they said they engaged him before he went in, and then they said that the waiting period was outside. That story changed, and it said they went in. They didn't determine how long they were in there for. Then it went from that to now there's proof and video footage that leaked out. These cowardly ass cops sat around while that boy was walking, and mind you, now the classroom door was never locked. And I said that, if you go back, I said that originally. There was the other bullshit story that, they were trying to find keys to get to a classroom, by the way, that was turned out to never be locked. I told you before, those motherfuckers were there to make sure nobody disturbed that boy from the sacrificial rite that they were performing. Trust me when I tell you, I don't give a fuck, call me crazy. Call me what you want. Those cops were there to make sure nobody disturbed that boy. They sat around like cowards and punks. And look, I want to be clear on this. I'm not a police hater. There's good police and bad police. I got friends that I know are good police, but there's corrupt police. There's fucked up police. Let's just keep it real, okay? It's just like anything in life. You have your good, you have your bad. They sat around and they did absolutely nothing, just like I said, and now the video is proving it. And all of those cops should be arrested for murder, sitting in that hallway, watching and doing nothing. They should have stormed that door when they heard that. If you see the video of this punk-ass cop running, that's what you get paid for. And you got a bulletproof vest on. That's what you get paid for. Why are you running like a cowardly-ass punk? You hear the gunshot, he's running. You got to see this shit. It looked like some Keystone Cop shit, some straight up comedy out of a movie. I'll tell you what, I couldn't have been a parent in that school, because I tell you what, the way I felt when I saw that, and it's not even my kids, I would want to go hunt down every one of them cops that was in that hallway that sat there and did nothing, okay? That did nothing. For 45 minutes, and there's footage of this kid, they got footage of this kid just walking through the hallways like, dude, like a video game. It was like a video game to this fucking kid. If you look at it logically, there's no other explanation. They were performing a sacrificial rite. There's two other things that went under the radar. Shortly after that, which they briefly mentioned it, I forgot where it was in London, but it's a section in London that's very, very populated heavily with people that have migrated from Johannesburg, a lot of South Africans. And they still haven't explained what happened, and I'm looking into it because there's a lot of bullshit there that don't make sense. Apparently, they went in there and they found 40 to 50-something people dead, as if they all were stampeded. That's what they're claiming. Something happened there. They're not saying what happened, and it's a predominantly a black area in London where it's known for a lot of people who have migrated from Johannesburg. Now, peep this shit because it gets worse. Peep this shit. And then almost 50 people died. They're not giving an explanation of what happened. It's looking like something happened in there and they were all trying to rush to get out and got stampeded. No, it's somebody trapped them in there to perform another sacrificial rite. Now, just last week, okay, another similar spot in Johannesburg got shot up. Randomly, cars pulled up and just started randomly shooting on the patrons in there. This is the shit. This is the type of shit we're dealing with now. Somebody is targeting somebody. And again, I don't want to divert, but this needs to be mentioned because what I'm trying to tell you is if they can play, look, if they can play off of your emotions and trap you and control you through fear, because there's a lot of crazy school shit going. There's a lot of crazy shit going on outside of these school shootings, and you have to ask yourself questions. There was something else also that happened, and I saw it on Facebook, and this was in April. And you guys could pull up the video. You see an object, literally. Some of you might have seen it. You've seen an object literally crashing and hitting the moon, and you see residue rising up in the air after it hits the moon in broad daylight. What the fuck is that? Why am I saying all this? East London. Thank you, Keona. I just saw that out the corner of my eye. I mean, listen, you have to ask yourself, it's like there's a concentrated effort for all of this shit that's going on. Why? Because now we have to get back into the concept of reality. Because when you accept this as reality, it becomes real. Is it really real? Because as I've said many times before, you don't really know if you are in somebody else's reality, confusing it for being your own. Okay? It's no different with most of us. Okay? As I said before, when the body becomes or lacks light or knowledge or intellect, this is why most people get diseases, right? It's because there's that disconnect from the spiritual realm, right? And there's that lack of connection where the body is not receiving spiritually what it needs to receive. And this is why a lot of us have things going on within us that we can't explain. A lot of people who, look, I'm sure there could be plenty of you guys on here. There's people sometimes you go to the doctor and they can't find nothing wrong with you, but you know there's something wrong with you. You can feel it, right? Because you're tapping into some type of vibration, energy, and frequency that is destroying your energy grid or your matrix, right? It's interfering with your spirituality. So it can create feelings of being sick, feeling ill, feeling tired, fatigued all the time, getting pains in the back of your neck, migraine headaches, all types of weird body pains out of nowhere. And you can't explain this shit, right? What your spirit is trying to tell you, or your personal daemon or higher self, you're tapping into a frequency and a vibration that's not in alignment with what you're in alignment with, and it's trying to tell you something. We got to pick up on all this because we are living in an age and a day and time that this shit, they're on some interplanetary warfare shit right now. And what we have through the power of the occult, through the power of the left-hand path, and as you know, I teach it in my perspective. I'm not saying my way is the only way, but I come at it with minus all that bullshit and illusionary shit. We're not doing this. We're not armchair magicians. We're not doing this because of all the stereotypical shit you see on the internet. Some of that shit is comical. And as I've said before, there are a lot of occult left-hand people who are more religious than religious people. Just got to keep it 100% with you. That's reality. We don't want to be like that. We are going into a serious stage of war. We're getting ready to go through a phase of spiritual warfare, the likes that nobody has experienced ever on the face of this planet. And you better be ready to fight because they're trying to take your sanity. That's where they're starting. It's a mental war. So they got to turn people into crazies. Everybody's going out of their fucking mind because they can't perceive the reality that they're projecting. Because think about this, if you have a certain way of thinking for years and that gets destroyed, right? They built up, this is how they do it. They build something up, they get you to trust it and accept it, and then they come right behind it and smash it.
So everything you put your trust and you put your confidence in and your time, effort, and energy, whether that's the educational system, the political system, spirituality, you name it, the Constitution that the so-called government is founded on is a hot mess. They spent years. This is how fucking they operate. They spent years to get you to trust that and co-sign on it. And now where they got everybody where they want, now they just come right behind and bam, destroy it all through everything that you're seeing going on right now. So it's up to us. Now, if you go back to 2016, I told you guys, right? And I don't want to sound like Nostradamus, because I'm not one of these motherfuckers that get on here saying I got downloads and all that. I'm not into all that shit, right? We all get downloads or messages. We all should be in tune with the spirits, right? So I don't get on here and do that. We all have that capability. We all have. I don't ever get on here and speak for the masses. But I said back in 2016, people didn't understand that Trump was the doorway to opening this up. Forget about your personal hate for Trump. And I'm not a Trump supporter or a Trump hater. I'm just about telling it like it is. I told you Trump was going to ruffle fucking feathers, okay? Because he is not a Washington politician. He's a businessman. And he wanted to manage this country like a business. And if you look at some of the things he did, outside some of the ignorant shit he said and did, outside some because he's just not a people person, right? This was the beginning for them. They said, nope, we have to change things because of what he was getting ready to do with this economy, how he was getting ready to shift the political field. They couldn't have it. They could not have it. Trust me when I tell you. And again, fast forward to Corona, moving on down the line, not to get into all that. All of these things are happening for a reason. We must be prepared. How do we stay prepared? Real simple, by staying consistent in your work. Now, this is going to sound crazy. I can only explain it the way I'm experiencing it. It's like this stuff is all going on. I'm very aware of it. I'm conscious of it, but it's like it's going on outside of my universe. Like I have a universe within a universe, how I'm working and what I'm doing. Everything is still very effective for me. Everything is still flowing. It's like it's almost like when Ra was trying to keep a Pepper Bay, but he couldn't. We have to learn to do that. We're keeping that chaos at bay by keeping what's going on in our immediate surrounding environment in harmony and unison with what we're trying to do. So it's like there's an awareness there to a degree of what's going on, but not to the point where we allow it in our universe, right? Our existence to the point where it affects and destroys us like it does other people. I can only describe it as it's like I'm living side by side with another parallel universe. I know that might sound fucking bizarre and crazy to people, where it's not affecting my money flow. It's not affecting my life. And I'm not saying that anybody is untouchable, because anything can happen at any moment, right? Anything can happen at any moment. So I'm not saying nobody, myself included, is untouchable, but you need to have that mentality that you are not. Because if you don't, you open up your mind for all of that weakness to seep in. And then they start to slowly go to work on you mentally, and they start to break you down to the point where it can lead to physical ailment, diseases, sickness, and even death, okay? This is fact, right? So your imagination, when you go into your meditations and your visual and your dreams, the thoughts that you manifest, that is reality, right? It's a reality to you, because the question you have to ask yourself, where did those thoughts come from? How did I tap into those thoughts? How am I receiving these communications and messages? Well, this is where the reasoning function must come in, because this is where some people can go spooky. It doesn't mean you get on YouTube and say, I am a divine messenger and I got messages for everybody and the ancestors spoke to me. That's not what you're supposed to do, right? Contrary to belief, right? You're supposed to first and foremost take those messages to better yourself, right? And be careful when you're sharing them, because that can be used against you, okay? And you must make it clear that if you're having experiences and receiving messages that somebody else hasn't yet, then it doesn't mean that it's what you're saying is correct. It doesn't mean what you're saying is wrong. It just means maybe that person hasn't experienced what you've experienced, and that's okay. So we have to understand it is subjective in nature, because there's no such thing as this false shit we're calling, time, right? So you could be tapping into a different spiritual vibration and frequency on a whole nother dimensional level than somebody else. And this is why it doesn't resonate, and there may not be that understanding or that connection. This is what creates differences. This is why there's so many doctrinal and debates and arguments over spirituality and religion, all based on one's perception and understanding of what the person thinks they know based on what they've experienced, which that's okay. But it's not okay when it creates arguments and violence and start world wars and hate, and innocent people get killed and die. Now it's taken it to a whole nother level. Because why? Because it says there's an agenda there now, right? There's a deeper agenda there. And unfortunately, they will hide behind this sometimes and use it as justification to carry out whatever bullshit agenda they got. Being on this path is being obsolete from all that shit. It's about being aware, but it's also about being obsolete from it, to the point where we don't live our lives affected to the point or the degree that some people live a paranoid life. But the world is in madness right now. It's in an upheaval. Everything is falling apart as far as everything that keeps this structure in place. Everybody's seeing the loopholes in it now. The economy is a disaster, the worst since 1981. Inflation 9.1%. And I said years ago, when it gets bad, crime goes up. And they're acting baffled why crime is up all across the country, especially in urban cities and big cities. Well, when you start stripping people and taking food off their table and money out of their pockets, what do you think is going to happen? Okay? Crime, violence, warfare. That's what's going to start happening, okay? I mean, what else do you think common sense is going to happen? All right. Before I keep rambling, let me go into this short section, then I'll take some of your questions, and then we will go from there. So the Cannabis Revelation by Philip Coppens. Again, first name Philip, Philip, last name Coppens, Coppens. This book came out, I think, in 03 or 04. It's been out for quite a while, 18 or 19 years. I remember first getting this book years ago. And there's a section in there called the Stargate of the Gods that inspired me to kind of do this particular video tonight, because it kind of connects to the imagination. It kind of connects to how we connect with the spirits. It kind of connects to how effective we can be in our ritual and our spiritual work. And it shows you how powerful and potent the mind can be. And as I said before, your mind can be your best friend or your worst enemy, right? It can go two ways, right? And then once I'm done with this, then I'll take some of your questions in the chat. All right, for those that might want to write down reference point, I'll give you the page that I'm coming from, and you can look at this in your own time if you decide to get the book, or maybe you have the book already, and then you can go ahead and do your further research. I always like to give you guys, for years, I always try to give you the sources where I get some of this stuff from, so you guys can, again, look it up for yourself. All right. What was the duat, or the underworld? Eastern religions speak of a state of following death that is literally a state of nothingness, right? You'll always see these connections with the void, the abyss, or the subjective realm, or the multiverses, right? This is all talking about having the ability to tap in on that level. Everybody has that ability, right? They have called this the bardo, which is identical to the Christian concept of purgatory, or the Egyptian concept of the duat. The Egyptian Book of the Dead is not only the map for the travel of the soul after death, the Tibetan Book of the Dead is a similar work. The Tibetan book is called the Bardo Thodao, and it is a manual to help the soul in the review of its previous life and the planning of the next life. So let's stop here for a second. We really don't know. Most don't, I should say, not all of us, don't know what incarnation we are on, right? Some are aware, as I've said before, we've been here many times before. This ain't your first go around, right? Some of us get many of those moments of deja vu as if we've been here before, right? As if we experienced this before. We run into somebody and we're like, damn, I felt like I known that person or I saw that person somewhere, right? And we can't put our finger on it. This is all telltale, experiences alluding to the fact that you've been here before, whether you want to accept that or not, right? So sometimes we're going through things and experiencing things, and we may not be clear cut on why we're experiencing them. So when it uses the term that it's preparing you, when you talk about the opening of the mouth ceremony, when you talk about death, right? Here's the deep thing. As I said many times before, what happens when you close your eyes, right? Do you just go to sleep forever? And does consciousness still exist and continue on, even though the physical body has now ceased to function? But we know there is a soul. We know there is still consciousness. And we know the soul is comprised of energy, and energy can never be destroyed. So the question is, what happens, right? It's why a lot of us have been studying for years. Now, through out-of-body experiences, through astral travel, transcendental meditation, etc., we get an understanding kind of what can happen once we separate from this physical body, right? Because this physical body, too, can create illusions of everything we think around us that is solid, right? I've talked about this many times before over the years. We think, we hold an object in our hand, we drink about, we think it's solid, but it's only vibrating at such a low frequency, creating the illusion that it's solid. The same thing with yourself, right? You started to accept in your mind, okay, that, this is my hand, right? I see five, for the most part, who have five, fingers, etc. We are misinterpreting the signals of the energy that they are sending to us because they know if they slow down the vibrational rate and frequency, this is how they can perpetrate and perpetuate their illusions. This is how they can indoctrinate us to create their reality, because what they're projecting, they know isn't real, but they know if they slow down the vibration and frequency of it, we're going to perceive it as being real. And when you start to perceive things on such a low vibrational frequency, this is how your emotions now get controlled. These are your people that are miserable all the time, just angry or get triggered for no fucking reason. Just go off the deep end, ain't got no control or harmony within their emotions. They're just very reactive in nature. Those are people who have been effectively indoctrinated and programmed on a whole nother level. We're not just talking about regular program. We all know people like this. They get triggered at the drop of a dime for no reason, right? They're just so fucking miserable, just got so much stagnated, built up energy in them that they don't know how to facilitate it. And we do. There's ritual work we do to do that. Because as we said before, energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be manipulated. Anger is an energy. We know emotions, that's what emotion is. It's energy in motion. We know all of those emotions exist simultaneously, but the individual that is in alignment with their personal spiritual vibrational frequency is able to facilitate those emotions in harmony. So it's not about destroying rage in its entirety or anger, but it's not about letting rage and anger consume you to the point where you do or say something or make a foolish decision and you can get yourself into some serious shit. We know we can take energy, anger, and rage and the passion from it and channel that passion and energy towards something else that's more productive. Because think of this for a second. Look at somebody who goes into a fit of rage or anger and they do something, either a physical feat, a spiritual, they just do something that's just beyond almost human nature. It could be a feat of strength. It could be just something that stands out. Why? Because of that power of the energy and those emotions, the passion of it, right? So why can't that be taken? If we can do that to the point, or flip it to the degree where one would label that as being negative, why can't that be flipped around where we could take that same passion and fire and power and energy and gear that towards accomplishing something that's going to be beneficial for us, right? So they don't tell you to both sides. They just want to control the emotions, and they want to program in you which and how and what direction to channel those emotions. I mean, you see it out here today. People just get, man, people get set off today for no reason. It's just the day and time we are in. Because as we see things changing, and this is something, I go back to the late 90s, I started talking about this, what I'm about to say. I told people, as the earth goes through its changes, we always talk about the micro and the macrocosm. We talk about the power and the energy of the sun. People talk about sun gazing, understanding the power of the sun, and you should, especially through the mysteries of Ra. But it's been said for years, as the earth goes around its orbit in our galaxy and it gets closer to the sun, there's more consciousness being projected out into the ethers. And not everybody is able to absorb this power. It makes some people insane. Because the ones that are not doing the work, the ones that are not working on themselves consistently don't know how to tap in. And these are some of the people, unfortunately, that start hearing voices. They start hearing, they start having split personality disorders, and some of them just go downright fucking crazy because they don't know how to assimilate and break up what they're experiencing, what they're seeing. And this is why some people go off the deep end. You're seeing all these shootings because it gets to the point, it gets so crazy for them, they just want to escape. It's an escape now. I need to get out of this reality, this world, because I'm not able to process anymore what I'm seeing and experiencing. And the pressure of it is too fucking much. I don't want to deal with it no more. That's when they've now won, right? And this is not something we should ever fall victim to. And listen, I know it's not an easy thing, because when you see what we're up against, and my heart goes out to the children, it's crazy when we're long and gone. I mean, I'm 51. When my generation is gone, it's scary to think what's left behind. But we can do our job by teaching our children and breaking that cycle, because if we leave and we've left something behind for them to pass on, then that's when things start to change. That's what I mean when I say years ago, if you left tomorrow, did you leave a legacy that's going to make a lasting impact? A lot of people don't answer that question. It's up to us to teach children, not just our own children. And even if you say, well, I don't have no children, well, it's still your job to teach children in general if you know and you have the opportunity. Because these kids out here are fucked up. I mean, you just look at them, they just, lost. And a lot of it is not their fault. Like I say, I mean, the creativity and their imaginations being stripped from them because they're becoming very antisocial. They live on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok. That's their virtual reality, right? They're being sucked into something that they're calling now, that's big, artificial intelligence, right? Let me go to show you how. Look, and I was talking to one of the brothers in the mentorship program, Rabbi Ian. I think he was on here earlier, if he's still on here. I was explaining if we've all ever played one of those virtual reality games. Let me just go to show you how deep this is. If you ever played one of them games with the way you put on the headpiece, I forgot what they call it, the binoculars. They got the metaverse. They got all these different gadgets now, where you put these things on. And I've played them. I've tried them, experiment. I'm not big on them. I've tried them here and there just to try them. I have a set of one of them. I don't really use them because. How is it when you put on one of those devices, right? Check this out now, to show you everything I was saying earlier was true. when you put on one of these devices, if you're playing a fighting game or sports game, right? How is it, as you have this device on, they're feeding you these images, right? They're feeding you these different energy signals, right? To the point where you got this device on your head, and let's just say you're playing a sword or a fighting game or a tennis game. You're literally, your mind is interpreting the images they're seeing. You literally see a ball coming at you, or you see something in front of you that you're fighting, and then a person who's viewing this from the outside sees there's nothing in front of you, but your mind is obviously interpreting the images, and this is why they call it virtual reality, because virtual reality is based on the precept that I can feed your subconscious mind energy signals, because all reality is how you interpret that energy. That's it. That's my whole point. And those games are now showing you this. Because if you ever watch somebody play it and they're swinging and they're looking wild, they got it on, and there's nothing around them, to the outside observer, it's like, that shit is crazy. But the mind is interpreting it as that's real. Because as you have that on, your mind is saying there's something in front of me. I am fighting somebody with a sword, or I am playing tennis or baseball with somebody in front of me, and you're seeing the ball. And then why your mind is actually carrying out the actual actions now. You're swinging, there's nothing in your hand, there's nothing coming at you, but if you're playing a tennis game, and I played a tennis game before, you're swinging as if you have your mind has told you there's a racket in my hand. Your mind has told you, based on what you're seeing in those goggles, there is a ball coming at me. To the point where you have now convinced yourself that there's a tennis racket in my hand and there's a ball coming at me, to the point where you now receive signals and messages from your brain. The ball is coming, swing. See, I've said one thing before, your central nervous system and your neurological functions are key. Remember when I was saying earlier, sometimes you just get these pains out of nowhere. I said on a previous class, it might have been last one or the one before, if you understand your 12 occult nerves, your 9 magnetic particles in the back of your neck by the stem of your brain that are connected to those occult nerves, that are responsible for sending energy, frequencies, and signals to your subconscious mind, they've been working on damaging that for years, and all of us have damaged magnetic particles back there through all the technology, ionized radiation that's out there in the atmosphere, all the things we're exposed to with pollution, the environment. I'm just, like I said, it's going to be a little bit more scientific tonight. They know this. So they've been destroying the neurological signals that we receive, so we can't interpret them the way we need to interpret them. They want to interpret them for you, so they create these type of games. Okay, we never may have looked at it like that, but look at it like that. Why? Because I'm trying to show you the brain will interpret the energy signals it's receiving. Now, how do they do this? Through something they call Wi-Fi, right? Wi-Fi can be sent through, in a matter of snap of a finger, it can travel, it can be sent, because the information they send through Wi-Fi vibrates at such a high frequency, it can go from one place to another just like that. Now, here's the fucking answer to the question. If they can do that, and you have the power to do that in the mind, you can do the same thing. You can go from here to there just like that. Almost like that shit you used to see back in the day on Star Trek. Beam me up, Scotty. And they went from one place to another. What were they showing you? They were showing you they had technology to speed up the vibrational frequency of the individual, where that individual can take flight in an energy state and then slow down its physical vibrational frequency and take on a solid form, given the ability to be in one place, go to the next place, you could travel the universe at the snap of a finger. How do you think some of these things that people talk about extraterrestrials and intelligent life form from other galaxies and planets, how do you think they have the ability? There's things that they don't want to explain that they know exist. Now, are we dealing with in our path, or some of the beings and the archetypes and the spirits and the demons we work with have that ability? Yes, because they're time immemorial. I hate when people put time frame on them, right? Oh, Lilith goes back. No, don't put a time frame on Lilith. There is no time frame for Lilith, right? Don't put your human stamp on it, because I hate when people do a disservice with Lilith, they tie it back to the story in the garden. That was one of many times where Lilith manifested and appeared, right? You got to understand, all of us, like the spirits, the gods, the goddesses, and the demons, we are energy. The same way they have the ability in multiple dimensions and areas of time to incarnate in various different cultures over millions and billions of years, we have the same ability to do the same, okay? We have the ability to do the same. So don't put time, don't let your mortal self limit who and what they are and how they are connected to you. You do that when you start putting time frames on it. That's why I laugh at all these debates people have on the internet, chronological time and biblical time and historical time, as if you could really 100% accurately prove that. If you wasn't there, you can't really prove it. And don't be quoting other scholars, because they did the same thing. They theorized too. But guess what? At the end of the day, who gives a fuck? Because that's not the important thing. The important thing is, how are you tapping in to your spiritual path and your spiritual journey, right? And what is your spiritual path and journey doing for you? Is it just doing for you where you argue and debate and fight with everybody? Is that what your spiritual path is teaching you? That's pretty fucking sad if that's what it's teaching you, right? Your spiritual path should be teaching you how to master yourself on all levels. Spiritually, first and foremost, knowledge of self. That's first. If your goal isn't knowledge of self and mastering yourself, then you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. That's goal number one. That's goal number one. You must be in a sound mind and sound body. That's goal number two. And as I've talked about this, we talk about this in the shadow work class, the 5 points of self-mastery. That's what the pentagram represents to us. That's what the Baphomet represents to me. When I'm looking at my pentagram, when I look at the sigil of Baphomet, it's not a deity. We don't worship Baphomet. We don't do it like those wacko religious left-hand path people do, right? There's some that do it. Not knocking them, but I got to call it for what it is. It's a sigil. It represents certain states of consciousness. When we look at the Baphomet and the 5 points of the pentagram, it represents 5 points of self-mastery. This is what I teach people in my class. This is something that has come to me in my work that I want other people to experience for themselves in their work. Not because I'm telling them to accept what I'm saying, but the 5 points: mastering yourself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and yes, financially. Right? These should be the driving forces in that order while you're on this path. Second one, again, you need to be in a sound mind. Third, emotionally, is there harmony in your emotions and how you project your emotions and how you tap into your emotions? So mentally and emotionally is critical. It's key. It's going to be a telltale sign of where you are at in your understanding. Okay? And then physically, right? Briefly, as I was telling everybody in the class on Saturday, you got to take care of your health. You need to be getting some form of exercising. A lot of us are getting sloppy in that arena. We're making excuses. Well, I don't have time. I can't do it. You better find time. You need to make sure that blood is circulating, that oxygen is flowing, because everything that they're putting out there to attack us deals with the immune system, number one. It deals with the respiratory system, circulation, and breathing. And they know a lot of it ties into one key vitamin. And as I said this before, they were saying all this with corona. Everybody that gets corona and they run tests on them, it shows a serious deficiency of vitamin D. Now, I can go through several different supplements, and I put them up on the screen on a previous one. NAC is another supplement that's great for neurological function and disorder. Berberine and micro QPG, right? These are things they don't want you to know about because it keeps the central nervous system and the immune system in order. So we need to make sure we're taking care of our spiritual health, our physical health, diet, right? We all struggle with that to a degree, okay? We all struggle with that to a degree. Diet and exercise are important. Don't let nobody tell you otherwise. I'm not telling you to be a vegan or to be this or to be that. I'm telling you to be what you need to be to get right. Because some of us too, outside of the spiritual effects, we suffer with illness. Some of us are sick and ill because we're destroying ourselves by the dietary choices and the things that we do to our body, or the things that we don't do to our body. Some form of exercise, right? And I'm not saying you need to, as I said before, I'm not saying you need to be in the gym 7 days a week, 3, 4, 5 hours a day. I'm not saying that. Hey, if you got that time, power to you. You do need to be getting regular exercise weekly on a daily basis, okay? This is important. Don't negate it. And it's even becomes more important as you get older. Because think about when you were younger, right? I remember when I go back in my teens and my 20s up until I probably say things started to slow down in my early 30s. Think about when you used to be able to eat anything you wanted. You could eat anything, any point of the day, any time of the night. You thought you were indestructible. It didn't matter what you ate, where you ate. Because you were young, you were in a different state. Think about if you were like myself, or you're older in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, late 30s, 40s, 50s, and up. You can't do that no more, right? Because now it becomes self-destruction, right? It don't mean you can't indulge in some of the foods that you like. It just means you just can't eat certain things all the time like you used to. That's all, right? So I always say with diet, be wise. You should know your blood type, right? You should know your blood type, because your blood type is going to be a strong determining factor of what type of diet you should be on. And don't let nobody bullshit you, okay? There's not one particular diet for every person in the world. It doesn't work. And blood type is a strong reason for that, right? Because you're going to find people with O blood need more levels of protein. Yes, and there's various sources you can get certain levels of protein outside of meat. Some need lesser. Some have certain things going on in their body based on those blood types, etc. But not to get too long-winded, because this is not this type of class. But I'm saying, long story short, you should be getting some exercise and taking care of the physical aspect of yourself. All right? And then obviously the last one, financially, right? What are your financial goals, right? What are your career goals? You ever ask anybody, what's your plan? Where do you see yourself 15, 20 years from now? And it's not about trying to get to the 15, 20 years now. It's about what steps are being laid out to get to the 15, 20 years. Most people that are not doing well financially is because they don't have a plan. What's your plan? And that plan is going to vary from individual to individual, because his life situation is different. Some people are on their own. Some people are in relationships. Some people are in relationships with kids, right? So everybody's going to have a different plan. This path, if we're focused on those 5 points of the pentagram, self-mastery, we have plenty enough to do to not be distracted with all the bullshit that they got going on out here. And this is why I get baffled when people tell me I don't know what to do. I just don't see how. There's a lot to do. There's a lot that needs to be done. It's more, the question should be asked, what is it we're not doing, right? Because we get a million reasons why we can't, and people can't come up with any of the reasons why we can. So back to the point I was finishing before I get sidetracked. It's about how the brain receives those energy signals and how they interpret them. And that's why I was using the example of the virtual reality games that these people play now. Put on these goggles. The mind is telling you there's nothing in front of you physically. So now the question is, what we're interpreting as being solid, what are we really interpreting now? Because as I said before, it's just energy slowed down in vibrational frequencies. And I use the example of Wi-Fi, right? Because Wi-Fi and bandwidth moves at such high rates of speed. If we slowed it down, we would be able to see it as some form of a solid just vibrating at a slow frequency. So all it is wavelengths of information or Wi-Fi that they're sending, whether they send it through a computer, right? And the computer absorbs it. It's the same thing they do with your brain. Because as I said before, your brain also is a computer. Don't let them bullshit you. Your brain stores information, it absorbs, and it perceives. So this is why we cannot let them strip us and destroy us of our imagination. Because if they take your imagination, they could take your power. I say imagination because imagination ties into the word images or image, right? When you're doing visualization, in order for your subconscious mind to interpret the energy it's receiving, it also has to create images, right? So when you go into the recesses of your subconscious mind in meditation, in visualization, in ritual, and exercise, you're going into the power of your imagination to create. That's what a god or a goddess does. They create. But you also have the ability to destroy. And through that creation and destroying process that goes on simultaneously in here, you're constantly building and destroying your universe or universes / multiverses. Because God builds and destroys. You are God in that sense. You do that through the power of your imagination. So it's as simple as if you want to go back in time and heal trauma, you have the ability to travel in time. We do this in the shadow work class. We're doing something phenomenal now with music. We're using music as a form of ritual work, which is a very powerful tool, right? And that's something maybe I'll elaborate or do a whole class on. I've talked about it here plenty of times. These are the things we need to be very conscious and aware of, because this is what's going on and this is what we're up against. So if the imagination is stripped and taken from us, our power is taken from us, right? We always hear this term, mental slavery and imprisoning the mind, right? Very true. Very true. Because you accept and reject what you interpret as reality. I don't care if that's science, if that's math, if that's religion, if that's spirituality. You accept and reject what becomes real truth and reality to you, because truth is personal. Because truth is not going to be identical to everybody simultaneously. Because as I said before, you can make a statement or present something. You could have 3, 4, 5 people look at that and each have their own perspective on what's true and what's false. And it's not the point that either one is right or wrong. The fact is that's how they're perceiving and interpreting what they think is the truth based on their reality, right? So these are the things. So what I'm going to do for the sake of time, I'm not going to really go through, get that book though. But there's actually there's one paragraph on here, because you guys could read the book for yourself. I just didn't think it was going to go. Where is it? There's one section I wanted to point out. Okay. All right. We were talking about the duat, right? Oh, right here. Okay. Something that was connected to the Book of the Dead. I'm gonna finish with this, and again, you guys can read this on your own time for the sake of time. Then I'll go into some of the questions in the comments that we have. The Book of the Dead was therefore the manual for the deceased person to find its way in death. So what did the ancient Egyptians think happened to the soul after death? It is clear that they had a vastly defined concept of the afterlife. They believed that the knowledge of certain formulae would allow them access to a divine realm where they would be met by the ancestors, deities, and remain there forever. Debates on the contents of the ancient Egyptian religion are, to say the least, scant. It is largely discussed by many different authors, etc. But the point I wanted to point out here is this concept of what they're calling the afterlife, right? And as I was saying earlier, and then got sidetracked a little bit with this concept of death that's connected to this, because the relationship of the imagination to what they're calling death, right? There's always been a lot of theories on this. There's always been a lot of speculation on this, right? And the reason for that is, as I've said before, because for one, let's just be factual, okay? So I see I gotta sometimes pay attention to the Instagram, my bad. As I've said many times before, there's no 100% clear-cut evidence exactly what happens, right? There's theories, but it's up to you because they have programmed our imagination with fear when it comes to death, because we start to imagine, especially maybe when we were younger, or maybe when we were in a state where we're not at the level of knowing that we know now, right? Some of us, if we were honest with ourselves when we were younger, we had certain fears and insecurities about what they called death, right? But the ancient Egyptians believed there was a continuation. They'd always talked about the afterlife, right? They always talk about a continuance, right? Because as I said before, we know energy cannot be destroyed, right? Energy can be manipulated. Energy continues to move and vibrate and never stands still. Nothing ever rests, right? We know this through the 7 Hermetic principles. Nothing ever rests in what we call the universe and the multiverses. It creates the illusion that it does. And now that validates what I'm talking about, vibrational frequency, and what we're interpreting as being solid is really illusionary. We're seeing it that way only because the brain is receiving the signs and the signals that I'm looking at something solid, only because the energy that it's receiving from what it's looking at is vibrating at a slow frequency. So this is why they're trying to, we always hear this term, low vibration, right? We always hear this term in spirituality, stay away from low vibrational things, or things that have a low vibrational frequency. Well, that's their goal and their objective, is to keep you in low vibrational frequencies, right? We always heard from years, like Dr. Delbert Blair used to talk about ELF, extreme low frequencies, right? And in extreme low frequencies, they can send messages to your brain that you're not always conscious and aware and can see and feel, but it's there and they're programming you when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. What are you supposed to be doing? Knowledge of self. You're supposed to be doing ritual work and spiritual work so you can master yourself, not fall prey and victim to these type of things. All right. Let's go to let me see if I can scroll up here. One thing I got to figure out that this thing sucks ass is, let me go up here if I can scroll up. All right, let's see if I can work it way down from here. All right. All right, I'm going to go into the chat, take a few questions here. Let me go on my tablet. I don't know if it's this computer, but the fucking, let me pull it up on here. Yep, they're able to see it. So one thing I don't like, let me see if I can do it actually through here would be better. Hold on. I don't know if it's going to let me though. Let me see. I think I could do it through here. All right. Yeah, it's something. And I thought I fixed that. All right, hang tight for 1 second. See if it lets me do it through here. Actually, while I'm doing that, it's probably gonna let me do it through here better. Yeah, let's do it through here. Quicker. We'll just turn the sound down. All right, yeah. All right, so let's come up to I don't know where. The only thing is when you come in through this part, it doesn't take you to the top. Yeah, it starts. All right. Okay. All right, I'm gonna do it through here. It's working through here. Sometimes it doesn't get to the beginning, but I'll work with it. All right, so let's. I'll try to focus on questions. Here was a good comment earlier from Rabbi Hina. It's funny because once I got deep enough in my imagination, I had to stop talking to people about the work I was doing. Things become too abstract. This is very important. People's lack of perspective can destroy your world, and that's true. Other people around you. That's why one of the things that we work on this path is our immediate surrounding and environment. Sometimes we have toxic people around us, and they can destroy your imagination and try to take your power, right? That's a very good point. That's why I wanted to read that. Good, excellent point. So I want to say peace, greetings, infernal blessings to everybody for the sake of time. Actually, I'm sitting here fumbling with this. Let me put this on the stand. Sometimes I make things more complicated than they don't need to be, right? Let me do it like this. All right. Actually, let me put it in front of me. So you got to hold the mic here. All right, there we go. That works perfect. All right. So that was earlier. So I wanted to read that. There we go. So what else we got here? Let's see. So yeah, don't let people look. Part of shadow work is what is it that I need to cut away from myself? What is it in my environment and surroundings? That's person, places, and things that are toxic. And sometimes it's the people we keep around us, but we're in denial about it. You might like certain people, but you might find out later down the road, these people ain't good for you. Stop fucking with them. So that's very important. All right. Yes, thanks for typing that in, Jenny. Philip Copen's, again, was the book, The Cannabis Revelation, Stargate of the Gods. I know you can't see it because I got the filter on in the back. The book came out, I think, in 03 or 04. It should be available on Amazon. I think Unlimited Press has it too. But anyway, just Google it. I'm sure you guys can find it. All right, what else we got? Questions. Let's go. Let's get it. I'm in the mood for some questions. So this was from Kiona earlier. When a candle on the altar will not go out, how would you read that to mean? Okay. There could be a multitude of things, right? And again, I can only share with you my experience. This one, we have to be clear, obviously, what spirit was that candle lit, or what purpose was that candle lit for? To me, depending on the intent that was put out there, that could be a sign of confirmation of that what you did is working, or it could also be, depending on the intent and the purpose, that there's more work to be done, right? I've always told people you should know how to read your candles too, especially glass candles, wax candles, right? There's a lot of books out there on how to read and interpret candles. For an example, I've talked about this before, glass candles. If you're getting a lot of foggy, cloudy residue, it means that you need to continue working. There's more work to be done. When you're getting that clean burn on the glass, it's clean, clear, you're not getting much residue, that means that the work is effective, it's working, right? Wax candles, a little bit different because you need to see how they burn down. If they're burning down clean and level, again, confirmation they're working. If they're burning very sloppy and destructive, and sometimes the wax might look for images and symbols, that can happen too. And that can tell you that there's more work or something specific that you need to know, okay? So, yes. It could be either or, but that's a good question, all right? What else we got? So that was from Kiona. Young Finest says, Brother Baniti, love you. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Love you guys too. Yeah, when I was talking about earlier, I see another comment there by Kiona with, not to get back into that. Yeah, man. I mean, that video that just came out, the other day with those cops. Now, proof that they were standing around doing nothing. It's fucking sad, man. I mean, I just don't know. I'm so angry. I can't even imagine what it would like to be a parent who is affected by that. And I'm so angry, and the way I feel about it now makes me want to get on a plane and go do something about it, literally. I can't even fathom what some of those parents are experiencing, feeling in their mind. It's just fucking mind blowing. Mind blowing. Yeah, 77 minutes, I heard. Yeah, it changes. You don't know what the fuck to believe. First it's 30 minutes, 44 minutes, 50 minutes, 77. There's such liars that they can't even get their lies straight. That's how fucked up they are. That's how much they lie. They lie so much that they can't even cover all their lies. That's how bad they lie all the time. So you don't know what to fucking believe anymore, right? Yeah, you saw the video where they were running with guns in their hands. There's about a gang of them. I don't know how many were there, 15, 20. One guy shooting, and there's a gang of them with rifles, guns, weapons, vests, and they stand around like punk bitches and cowards. Man, yeah, let me not talk about it because, again, yeah, it just gets me angry. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, that mass quote-unquote death that they still can't explain was in East London. And it's a well-populated community of migrants that moved to London, in that part of East London, from Johannesburg, South Africa. And then recently, just a few days ago, another similar thing happened directly in Johannesburg, South Africa. Why are they targeting South Africans? Is it that has something to do with, I got my theories. We'll see how it play out. I got my theories, though. Yeah, 22 teens murdered in East London. It's crazy, man. It looks like they are targeting certain races of people. And it could be for a multitude of reasons, right? Yes, Michael Hyson, good comment. Basically, keep your power to yourself until needed, then unleash hell. Remember, a true master doesn't reveal all his secrets. I'm baffled how you got all these people running around on social media and the internet and all over the place, bragging and boasting of what they know. See, one thing I told you, don't fall for these crocs on the internet talking about how they do all this spiritual work and they can kill people and destroy people. Anybody that's fucking promoting it like a buffoon is a buffoon. We all know the real adage, real bad boys and bad girls move in silence. A real gangster is going to move behind the curtains. A real master doesn't get on social media and brag and talk shit about what they know, because you'd be a fool to do that. You don't let your enemy know what you do know and what you don't know. You let your enemy know what they need to know. Right? There's a saying, you tell people shit on a need to know basis. So if you don't need to know, I ain't telling you. That's how that works. That's how you got to deal with people. There's some people that only need to know on a need to know basis. So what am I basically essentially saying? Stop telling people all your personal business and your shit. A lot of people's plans in life get destroyed because you run your mouth and you tell everybody what you're getting ready to do. You can't keep it. We got brothers too that are pillow talkers. They can't keep a secret to themselves. Stop telling people all your business. I'm a big firm. Keep business in-house. Because sometimes people will use what you tell them against you. And sometimes when you got diarrhea of the mouth, you are your own worst self-destructive enemy. So that's good advice. And yes, unleash hell when needed, right? Yes, energy doesn't lie, right? We all have experienced this. How many times have we walked into, I've talked about this many times over the years. How many times have we gone somewhere and we walked in, man, I ain't feeling the vibe around here. Look at the word we use. I'm not feeling the vibe, man. Something don't feel right in here, right? Why? Because we're tapping into a vibrational frequency that our mind automatically is interpreting based on what we're feeling. Something's not right. It could be reversed too. Sometimes we go somewhere, we're like, oh man, I'm feeling this shit. Oh, I'm loving this thing. Oh, I'm loving the people here, the event. Energy will not lie to you, but you gotta get yourself in a position to be able to perceive that energy how you need to perceive it in accordance that's in alignment with your spiritual vibration and frequency. Because, give me an example. You could be at some type of party or gathering And you could be with 3 and 4 people, and 2 of you could be like, oh, no, I ain't feeling this shit. But the other 2 could be like, oh, this is my cup of tea. I'm feeling this shit. So what is that telling you? One person is interpreting the energy that it's in alignment with their frequency. Another person isn't simultaneously. And that's the same energy. So don't tell me perception isn't a real fucking thing of how we utilize the concept of perception to what we determine as right or wrong. That's my whole point. So energy will never lie to you, right? To you. Stop worrying about what it's telling everybody else and that you need to accept what everybody else is not or not doing, because that's what religion's job was. Religion teaches you you can't think for yourself. You have to accept it like this and don't have an opinion, don't have a perspective, and don't come with anything outside of it, because if you do, you're going to be ostracized. You're evil, you're the devil, you're the Antichrist, and you're this and you're that, right? We have to raise ourselves outside of that's lower vibrational frequency, right? All right, what else we got? Yeah, because the reality is a lot of it, as I said earlier, when I say they and the powers that be, I'm just talking about all those that band together for power and control. And that could be black, white, Latino, because when you look in the hierarchy, it's not, you guys got to get out of this mindset. It's not just about racism. It's bigger than that. This is about classism. This is about gentrification and economics and power. And there's all types of fucked up, crazy, corrupt, power people working together for one common goal, control. And they come from all backgrounds and races. Don't let nobody shit you, okay? Because when you look up in some of the elites, you'll see them there. Don't think it's just these upper, rich European white folks. No, they got all types of people on the same page doing what they're doing, and it's all about money, power, and control. Trust me when I tell you, okay? Because at the end of the day, same shit. I was just having a discussion with somebody, and not to bring this up, but I got to bring it up. So I forgot how the discussion came up, but R. Kelly came up. Let me just run this real quick. I have to. I can't resist. So there's a lot of different thoughts on R. Kelly. And I said, look, I know when that special came out that pretty much did him in, I think it was at the end of 2019, Experiencing R. Kelly, whatever it was on Netflix. I watched it. So somebody asked me, did you see that? What were your thoughts on that? I said, well, some of it I thought was factual, but there was a lot of bullshit in there that I could cipher through. I could see there was a lot of people trying to get put on because they were trying to get paid, make money off of this. So I'm watching everybody in this conversation getting emotional. Oh, man, he's fucked up, this and that. Now, listen, I can only tell you my understanding of it as far as R. Kelly is concerned, okay? Do I think he did some of that stuff? Absolutely. Do I think he did everything that he was accused of? Absolutely not. But again, because we react on our emotions, we're not looking at the bigger picture. This is bigger than R. Kelly and his so-called ring of sexual abuse, which is a fucking travesty because nobody should be abused against their will and control. But what you guys fail to realize before we get caught up in our emotions, this is what I was telling the discussion I was having with a couple dudes here locally. First of all, I still listen to R. Kelly's music. I'm not going to lie, okay? Because whether you hate him because of what he's been accused of, it doesn't change the fact he makes good music. So I haven't stopped. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. So I'm just going to keep it real with you. I was cranking it just yesterday. Anyway, point being is, what you guys are failing to realize, they did the same thing to Michael Jackson. They did the same thing to Prince. They did the same thing to the Beatles and John Lennon, right? And the list goes on and on and on. What most people don't know, at the time all this was going on with R. Kelly, why they were really trying to get him, and to confirm what I'm saying, it's all about money and power. R. Kelly was trying to obtain control of his musical catalog, which, by the way, he did not fully own. And it was estimated that R. Kelly's music catalog is worth $950 million to upwards to $1 billion. So they were trying to destroy this dude because they weren't going to let him have that money. Okay, you guys got to always look at the bigger picture of what's going on here. They were targeting R. Kelly, and that was, and he didn't help them because he opened the door for the fuckery he was doing. So they had their door. They said, bam, we got him. This is how we can get him now. And again, this is just my opinion. Do I think some of that stuff was true? Yes, I do believe he was abusing some of them women and children. But I believe they piled a lot more on than there was actually there. And they said, bam, we got him. And we got that $1 billion that he'll never see. Guys got to go do the research. Same thing with Michael Jackson, right? My same perspective. Do I think Michael Jackson had issues and there was some funny shit going on there? Yes. To the degree they were accusing him of? No. But the same thing. Go look at what was going on with his musical catalog. So you guys got to look at the bigger picture. At the end of the day, don't get caught up in your emotions and race, because then it always becomes a black and white thing, a race thing, and it always becomes a personal thing. You always got to stop and pause and say, what's going on here? Something bigger going on here. Okay? Same thing they did with Prince. And then it doesn't help the fact when you look at how Prince and Michael Jackson both died, little suspect, little fishy. Something don't look right there. So it looks like this time they said, we can't do that again. We can't run the Michael Jackson or the Prince. What we got to do is we got to set somebody where we keep him in jail forever. Okay? Look at the bigger picture. I just wanted to share that, right? Yeah. All right. Yeah, and as Jenny said, they're getting caught now, right? All these people that are trying to control shit. Because look, there's only so many lies you can perpetrate to the masses. Eventually, at some point, we're going to see through the bullshit. And as I said earlier, they're lying so much that they can't even remember the lies that they say now. And they're getting caught up in their own lies. You know that. It's like if you got kids, right? Like something my mother used to always say to me growing up, and I say it with my kids now because we all did it. My mother used to say, you can't bullshit a bullshitter. And what that basically means is that's a person telling you, I was at that age, I did those things. I know when somebody's lying because I did it, right? And that's what I say to them now. You can't bullshit a bullshitter, right? Because I did what you're doing when I was at that stage. And that's what they're doing. They're trying to we came up, we've experienced so much that they can't bullshit us no more. They try, but they can't, right? Just like we can see through these fake ass people on the internet now. I tell people, it's sad. If you're getting taken for your money in this day and time, and I get people emailing me with the craziest shit. Somebody made a ganga pot for me. Somebody made my warriors for me. And as I said before, any spiritual implements, never have anybody do that for you via the internet and through the mail. Stop it. Stop being so desperate and needy because you want to be so spiritual, or you want to belong to something, or you want to be initiated in something, that you feel the need that you'll pay and be such a buffoon and a fool to get taken by some fool who's going to take you for all their money, right? What else we got? Mika says, only games I could play was on Atari and not a video game person. Yeah, the Atari, man, listen, man. It's funny you bring that up because, man, the video game shit has changed so much. I come from that era. I go one even better for you. I've mentioned this before in the past. Before they had something even before the Atari 2600 was the first. I say it's come a long way with the graphics. I mean, some of these games are so human-like. They make them so real with the technology. But back then, the shit was so bad. They had this thing you can get on Facebook. They advertise it called retro gaming, and it has all the Atari, the Sega, the Nintendo games. I was thinking about getting it just for shits and kicks. But anyway, even before the Atari 2600, they had something called ColecoVision. I'm going old school. That's for some of you guys that might be a little bit older. All ColecoVision was this big gaudy box, and it had games like tennis and volleyball and all basically. And this shit came out in the early 80s. Google it, ColecoVision. And all it was basically was a line with a ball. It would go, you would just take the thing, the ball would go boop, it would bounce you, you'd move the dial and hit it with the line, boop, you hit it back the other way, boop. That's basically what the whole fucking game was. It started with that, then it went to the Atari 2600, the Atari 5200. I think there was a 6400 if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me. I'm not all into games like that. Then it was Nintendo, then it was Nintendo 64, then it was Sega Genesis, and then PlayStation and all the other shit they got going on right now, right? All of these games, too, it's funny you bring up the gaming. Look how some people, there's grown-ass men and adults that are addicted to video games like crackheads because that has now become their virtual reality. That is their imagination, and your imagination can also be stolen through video games, okay? You can also be enhanced through video games, because there's something I talked about a few years back, using video games as a form of ritual. I'm not talking about in that regards, but there's some people who they become addicted to video games like a drug addict becomes addicted to crack, or like a person who can't stop eating becomes addicted to food, right? There's dudes that will sit on the couch all goddamn day from morning to night and won't do anything to better themselves, but they'll play video games all fucking day and smoke weed and won't do anything else. And some of you women allow these men to sit on your couch and come home, be frustrated while the woman is out all day working 10, 11, 12 hours a day and got a grown-ass man sitting at home on the couch playing video games, smoking blunts. And then you want to know why your life is a hot mess. Remember what I said earlier, it's about who you allow in your life, right? But yes, video games. Yeah, and I agree, Jenny, with your comment. There's so much right in front of us, but AI, or artificial intelligence, is the new thing. It's another higher form of technology for them to steal your imagination. Because see, remember, the goal is to disconnect the human reaction and the actual connection with it. So if I can create this artificial intelligence that's based off how your mind and your brain receives energy and how it interprets those signals, then I can disconnect you from everything that's authentic. Because if I have the ability to send this through the superhighway of information via Wi-Fi, right, and I can get information and images to you in a nanosecond, in a snap of a finger, that gives me severe power. Whereas if I'm looking at something in artificial intelligence, they have all these gadgets now where you could take a tour of somewhere. You could see Egypt and all the places of the world. And that's cool. That's cool. Maybe if you're doing a presentation, or maybe, it's something you want to do research and study on, you can't get there, but it doesn't replace the fact of being actually authenticating and experiencing it in real time. It's not the same thing. It's no different how they're disconnecting us from that human interaction and fellowshipping and getting together. I've said this before. How many of us have gone out to eat at a restaurant? I see this all the time. And you walk into a restaurant. I told you, when I go out in public, it's funny because sometimes if I'm out with people and I'm talking, they think I'm ignoring them. And they see me spaced out and looking at, I have something that I'm sure a lot of us have. I can be listening to you and hear everything you say, but my peripheral is off the chain. If I'm looking here, I can see everything going on almost to 3/4 of the back of my head, and my sense of here. I can hear other people's conversations from 4, 5, 6 tables away through all the noise and music or sound in a restaurant. It's just something I've always been able to do. So when I'm out, I'm always observing. I'm an observer. And I watch. And I've watched many times families come into a restaurant, a family of 5, 6, 7 people, 4, whatever. And I watch them get seated. They get to their table, and the first thing they do when they sit down, they all look at their phones. Nobody's talking to each other. And I watch and I see, and I'm watching and I say, how long is this going to go on? I've watched it go on for 10, 15 minutes. I'm talking about no strong conversation. I'm not just talking about a quick acknowledgement. They're so locked into that artificial intelligence called the cell phone, which is their new virtual reality, because they're so addicted to it, they can't stay off of it. How many people can go more than 5, 10 minutes without checking their phone and hear notification? Beep, oh, it goes off again. I got to check my Facebook. I got to check my TikTok. I got to check my Instagram. I got to check my Twitter. Listen to how, look, man, God damn it. Listen to how you got somebody like Zuckerberg who's got multiple different platforms with different names, but he runs all of them. So look how they control you and think you have options. If Facebook wasn't enough, they had to give you TikTok. Then they had to give you Twitter. They had to give you, and this shit all started from MySpace, if you remember, MySpace, right? Listen, man, they know what the fuck they're doing. Trust me. It's sad when you go into a restaurant and you see a whole family sit down and they're not even talking. There's no human interaction no more. This is what I mean when I tell you they've been trying now for the last several years, and Corona was the next step to a whole reset. They don't want you to think for yourself no more. They literally want you to almost be like these programmed robots you see in these futuristic movies. They want to tell you what to eat, when to eat, where to go. They want to tell you how to feel. They pretty much for years have been controlling how you dress, because whatever fad they put out there and publicize, fools run for it. Oh, the new Jordans is out. I got to go get the new Jordans, right? Oh, this just came out. Oh, every year they make millions upon millions of dollars every year for the fools that got to go run every year and get the new iPhone. And guess what? They'll be doing it this year. Okay, so it's about control. It's about control. All right. What else we got? Will Knight said, I'm not sure what that was in reference to earlier. That's what said, oh shit, that's what feelings is. I've never been able to put it into words, but you described it perfectly. So whatever that is, I'm glad we could have helped with that, right? Yeah, Kiona says, Lilith has helped me get back focused and mind right many times. You don't have a choice with Lilith, right? Lilith is the type of spirit or archetype that doesn't play games. And as I've said before, I'm in the midst of a year working, and I'm on month 8, right? Year working, 7 going on 8. And I can tell you this, it's focused on a year-long workings with all female archetypes, demons, and spirits. And each one is done with the black mass of Lilith to open it. And I've learned more about, and I've been working with Lilith for several years now, but I've learned more about Lilith in this last year, and I'm continuing to learn that I can't even put into words. She will get you right. It's not an option. It's not a choice. You need to be ready, because if you sleep on it, you can get caught out there, because she brings, like many others, brings the necessary change that you need to be aware of, that you can better yourself. And Lilith deals with a strong aspect of a cutting away or removing of what I was talking about earlier. She will remove toxic ass people out of your life. Sometimes you start fucking around with Lilith and your relationship goes south, your marriage goes south. That's what Lilith's way of telling you with the wrong motherfucker. Sometimes your business might fail, your job might go into the tank, and that's the way of being communicated that this is not the right path or career choice for you. See, we don't look at it like that sometimes when we go into the work, because we go in with this preconceived way of how we want it to manifest. We think, oh, I'm going to go in, it's going to happen just like this, and it's going to play out just like that. That's just not the case all the time. It's good to have an idea and a vision, but it's also good to be prepared and ready for whatever type of change comes. So must be ready at all times, especially with Lilith. What do we got? Yes, another good comment earlier by Ginny. Decalcify the pineal and grid with orgonite. That does help. There's a lot of things, in regards to that. Whether we talk about crystals, stones, essential oils, diet though is very important with that, because when it comes to diet, a lot of processed and artificial preservative foods can create high states of calcification when it comes in regards to that. Bad information, right? Taking in the wrong information. So calcification comes from a multitude of avenues. So based on the avenue it comes from is the plan of attack of how you should attack it. So if it's through healing, whether it's crystals, stones, herbs, diet, that's one way. Whether it's through spirituality, meditation, making sure you are working with your chakras, making sure you're doing grounding and cleansing, which we do in the Kundalini Yoga meditation class, which we have one upcoming for the month of August. I think we're up to class 8, I think we're going into. And that's very important. And I do classes exclusively on that on Patreon. I show you how to use mantras and chants for each chakra, because there's a vibrational frequency and a tone that activates each chakra. And simple mantras and activating the tones for each point on the chakras is a very effective way of keeping that energy right and sound. That helps in a huge, tremendous way with the calcification process, right? Because when we understand, one, the functioning of each chakra, which I'm not going to get into all that now because that's a class for itself. But we need to also understand how that affects us, and also in relationship to what organs of the body it affects. Because sometimes a lot of the pains and the illnesses that we're feeling is directly rooted to issues that could be going on with chakras, right? Because each chakra does have a connection and ties into certain parts of your nervous system, your digestive system, your organs, your glands. All of that is important, because sometimes when that is off and out of whack, that can create problems. Because sometimes, and again, I always say this, use common sense. Sometimes if we are ill, you take the first route, you go get checked out. But I'm saying sometimes if you've gone to the doctor and they've run tests and nothing is coming back, they can't figure out what's wrong with you, that's a telltale sign you're experiencing something of a spiritual nature. And no doctor, no test, no blood test, or no machine is going to pick that up. Your spirit is trying to tell you there's a disconnect. You have your etheric cord that connects you to all consciousness in the multiverses is out of whack. It's not, doesn't have a strong charge right now. So we need to look at ourselves and our lives and say, where have I been slacking off? Am I consistent in my ritual work? Am I consistent in my meditation and my healing work? Am I studying? Am I feeding my subconscious mind the right information that can get me in alignment with where I need to be? Or am I just bullshitting, wasting my time? Am I eating fucked up all the time? Am I doing fucked up shit 24/7? Do I have toxic people around me all the time? All of that can create spiritual illness. Don't let nobody fool you. Don't think that the people that you have around you is not an important effect, good or bad, on you. As I said many times before over the years, my mother used to tell me, you are the company you keep. You hang around derelicts, lowlifes, unsuccessful people, fucked up people, negative people, destructive people. You will become that at some point, whether it's internally or externally. You may not exhibit the same behavior on the outside, but guess what they've done to you on the inside mentally? They too have now corrupted your way of thinking. And you start feeling a certain way because you now have become acclimated and attached to the energy and the frequency that they gave off. So this is why I tell people that always come to me in consultations or readings, they always think they're under some type of attack. And I'm like, stop it. Let's start with basics first. Then you start digging and asking questions. You find out they hang around fucked up people. They frequent places that they shouldn't be going all the time. And they're doing fucked up things to themselves. So in essence, nobody's doing anything to them. They're doing it to themselves. Remember, part of being on this path, being a god or a goddess, is taking responsibility for your actions, good and bad, which that's a normal thing you should do anyway. That's not something you should get a badge of honor for. You, as a mature adult, you're supposed to be responsible for your actions. But here's where the responsibility wavers a bit and gets a little bit tough. But you must also be responsible for your successes, easy part, and your failures. Stop blaming other people for shit you fuck up at. Because 99.9% of the times, it's you doing it to yourself based on the choices and the decisions you make. It's that simple. Cause and effect, that's what karma is. Cause, choices, decisions I make, the effect of those choices and decisions that I make. Nobody forced you to be with a low life or a bum, or nobody forced you as a man to be with some gold digger hoe. Maybe you can't shake it because you're very insecure. You have some certain ways about yourself, some fears, some insecurities that you are not addressing. There is a serious psychological issue why people stay in abusive relationships. It's usually because they came up through systems of abuse. They were either abused themselves or they watched abuse, whether it's physical or sexual or mental or verbal, right? Nobody should stay in situations and conditions like that. There's a reason why they do, right? And that's the hard part of shadow work, addressing that side of the shadow or the hidden self, because that's not easy. But you must face that part of yourself in order to receive the blessings you need to receive to be successful. You can't avoid it. You can't sweep it under the rug. You can't pretend it doesn't exist. You can't go, I'll deal with it later at another time, because at some point, it's like when you boil water, as the water starts to boil, it's going to come to the surface. You can't keep suppressing it. It's going to come to the surface, all right? All right, this was earlier, about an hour and 10 minutes ago from Rabbi Hina. What would you say to someone looking to join your Red Magus program? Well, I know you're in the program, and I appreciate you asking that question. What I would simply say to somebody joining the program, and I know you yourself can attest if you're still here, and I know there might be a couple others in here, I think, if they're still here, it's work. And I know yourself and a few others, some of you guys have been in it for over a year. I got one student that's been in it for almost 2 years now. And the one thing I always get from them all is, man, I didn't realize that this is what it involved. And that's a beautiful thing to hear, because I always present it. It's work. And if you know where you've come from, and the beauty and the thing that puts a smile on my face is watching how some of them came in, and some came in with some strong understanding. Some came in with a very limited understanding. But to see where a lot of them stand today is a beautiful thing, not because I did it. I'm just being used as a vessel to assist in it. But it's a beautiful thing to sit back and watch the growth of other people that get it. So I would simply say it's work, and it's a commitment, and it's time, effort, and energy. And there's some of you that are really putting that effort and energy in. You understand what I'm saying? You're there. You get your work done on a monthly and a weekly basis. You're on the calls, and you got your questions ready. You're doing your reading assignments. You're doing your ritual work. You attend most of the Patreon classes when you can. And you're putting in the work. And that's what this is about. This is about putting in work. Nothing's going to change in your life if you're not willing to put in work. I don't care what anybody tells you. Okay? Because if it was that fucking easy, and if it was just that simple, we wouldn't need to do any of what we're doing right now. Right? So there are plenty of you guys putting in that work. So I would simply say a great question. Just be prepared to work. And this is why you always hear me saying over the last couple of years, if you join the mentorship program, I don't want you to waste my time, and I don't want to waste your time. I've got probably over 20 students in there now. And there's only so many I can take on in regards to that. But the point being is, I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want you to waste my time, right? Because it's work. And I only work with people that show me they want to work. Some of you guys have shown you really want to work. You really want to take it to the next level. And I'm not saying that like that makes anybody special. I'm not trying to be judgmental of anybody. I am trying to let it be known. This shit is work. I've been doing this shit for damn near 25 plus years, going close to 30 years, whatever. I didn't get to where I'm at by not doing anything. This doesn't happen overnight. I've gone through some serious, crazy shit just like the rest of everybody else has. I've gone through some of the lowest of low times to the highest of high times. Right? I've experienced the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, and the blissful. And that's what the journey is about. It doesn't happen overnight. And guess what, people? It's a continuous journey. It never ends. This is not a path where you get up and, oh, I finished. I'm done. Let me get my reward, my title, my trinket that says I'm this, I'm guru this, and master this, and priest this, and elder this, or whatever. No. That's why I don't put no titles in front of my name. I'm just Baniti. Because guess what? Them titles don't mean shit. Usually people give themselves titles to feed their ego. I don't do any of that shit. I don't call myself master this or wise guy. I know when people come up with these creative names and avatars, it's comical to me. Because I'm sorry, to me it screams out insecurity on a subconscious level. I don't need to put a title in front of my name for everybody to know what I know. That's just how I see it. Maybe there's some people that put titles in front of their names, and maybe they're just doing it as an innocent gesture. I don't know. It comes off to me when I tap into it very egocentric, right? Master this. Not so to the real masters that have been initiated. Not so much to the real people that have earned them titles, that do it in dignity and grace. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the ones that always got to throw it in your face 24/7, their name. And some of the names, I'd be tripping out, man. I'd be laughing my ass off. I love the ones that give themselves these really long, deep, mystical names. But I don't, fuck all that shit. To me, that shit is just stroking your ego. You see, I don't change, right? I don't change the name of the channel. I don't change my name. I might change some of the artwork or whatever. That's just normal. You get tired of it. But I keep it because primordial chaos is what, in essence, if I had to describe what I represent, that's why the channel's named Primordial Chaos. Baniti just simply means teacher when you look up the word. It's an Egyptian name that was given years back. Okay? It's the known name, right? You have a name you're known by. You have a name that's a spiritual name that you're only known in the temple when you're working rituals and mysteries, and only those in the dark in the temple know that name. And then there is your sacred name, which is not a physical name. It's not a name that consists of letters and words. It's a name that unlocks your vibrational frequency and tone, that connects you to everything that I'm talking about tonight. That's the name you are constantly working for, that unlocks every aspect of self-mastery. I'll elaborate on that more. So names is a tricky thing. The only name that people are going to know me by is the known name in the mundane world. And Baniti just means teacher. That's it. It's that simple. It ain't no he of the great sun warrior of the light and all that bullshit. And most of the time, people that take these fucking names can't even live up to the names that they pick. I be tripping the fuck out. Some of these motherfuckers you know on a personal level. And you're like, really, dude? You taking that name knowing that that name is in the complete opposition of what you really are and what you really represent. So remember, I always tell people, when you take a name, a spiritual name, whatever you want to call it, make sure the name represents you and make sure you can live up to the name, okay? Don't just take a name because you like it, because remember, when you're taking a spiritual name, you are taking on all the energy that's attributed to that name and the connection of all the other people that have taken that name. Now, the question is, how many Banitis do you know? See, I'm trying to drop some jewels on you here. So every time you take the name Set Heru or Heru Ankh this, everybody that carries that Heru Ankh name in that form, you are connecting to them to a certain degree on an energy and a vibrational level. Stop taking names that everybody else has, number one. And number two, make sure the name suits you, it describes you, and you can live up to the names. Because I guarantee you, I'm not saying there's no other Banitis out there. I guarantee you there's a lot. Yeah, I can find a lot, right? So understand what you're doing when you're taking on the attributes of a name, right? And in certain cultures and systems, a naming ceremony is very important, and it's taken very serious. In certain cultures and traditions, they have big elaborate ceremonies when a child is named, because it's a significant spiritual ceremony or ritual that is of importance, right? So a name speaks volumes. But I could always tell when people take these bullshit names, you know. Anyway, what else we got? It pays to keep your vibe high. True indeed. Hollow Vigata says exactly why when they said stay inside, I went out more than usual. Yes, during the COVID, that was a trick, because when they were talking about, and till to this day, everybody that gets diagnosed with it, they always show high levels of lack of vitamin D, serious vitamin D deficiency. Now, what is the greatest source of vitamin D? We all know the sun is. So why the fuck would you tell people to stay inside, right? The most natural and purest form of vitamin D you can get is sunshine. So why would you not want people to at least still be out, so-called social distance? You could be at a park, on a beach, absorbing the sun. I was outside all the time when they were saying that shit. Man, fuck that. That's the stuff that I'm talking about, that mind control, that manipulation. But they didn't want to explain to you why the lack of D. And they didn't want to explain to you that maybe increasing your level of D, because remember, the body absorbs D fast. Now, one thing, if you do supplements like I do, 1,000 IUs a day, always take D on an empty stomach. Do not take D with heavy food in your system, because your body won't absorb it and it won't produce it correctly to help build up your immune system. I can tell you D, C, like in the morning, I take 5 supplements on an empty stomach. I take vitamin D, vitamin C, pure natural forms of it. Don't take no cheap shit either. A couple years ago, I wasn't taking good quality, and I got a whole lesson in that. D, C, a B complex, which is super important for neurological functioning, your nervous system, your central, all of that. Take a good B complex. I take a B enzyme and a cellular recharge. It's a formula with a couple. I take that in the morning every day. And then at night, I take the NAC, the microbarberine, and then I take coenzyme Q10, which is 200 milligrams, but be careful because that's a blood thinner. So if you're ever doing any procedures, you need to know it is a blood thinner, but that helps with oxygen, It helps with any type of issues you might be dealing with. That pain or joint pain might be related to, because usually a lot of it is oxygen is not getting to right parts of the body. So coenzyme Q10 is really good for circulation, respiratory, and oxygen. I take 200 milligrams of that every day. That's it. Obviously, you drink plenty of water, which sometimes I've got to catch myself on that, and then a good diet. But I can tell you, them 8 supplements that I take on a daily basis has done wonders for me. And it enhances proper brain function, the whole fucking nine. I could be here all day talking to you about it. But in reference to the vitamin D, make sure you are taking that on an empty stomach, because B needs to absorb on its own. Do not take that with a lot of food in your system, because the amount of D that becomes soluble and your body actually uses is going to become very limited. So in essence, you're wasting your time is what I'm basically trying to tell you. All right. Excuse me for 1 second. I'm still gonna roll for a little bit, even though I've been on for a while, but I got some time. I'm gonna hang out for a little bit. I gotta check on something. I gotta check on my little man, and let me get another water real quick. I'll be right back. All right. All right, so let's see where we left off. Should we get some more questions in here? All right. Rabbi Ina said earlier, lion's mane is a great mushroom to take. Also, haritaki and chaga mushrooms. Yeah, there's a lot of different mushrooms outside of the shiitake and that do have beneficial principles. Valerian root. I used to drink valerian root tea. Valerian root is also good if you have issues. It's a very calming herb. I know people who have struggled with insomnia or maybe have issues sleeping. Valerian root in a tea form I found works best for sleeping, because the body seems to absorb anything in powder or liquid form better. I mean, they do make it, you can get valerian root in capsule form, liquid, but valerian root is another one. It does induce deep sleep. Or it can help, again, people that have insomnia. Yeah, sea moss is real big right now, but I'd be careful, because sea moss that's become a hustle game too. Just make sure wherever you're getting your sea moss, it's good quality, because that's become a big thing right now. And then obviously, there's the genuine, sincere people that are selling good quality sea moss, and then there's just the other people trying to capitalize off the hustle. Just make sure you ain't getting none of the hustle sea moss is what I'm saying. Because I tried some locally here from one dude. Shit was pure garbage. So just be careful. See, this is what I'm saying. There's a lot of shit we can be doing that's right. Like, look at all the shit people come on, man. How does it, we don't know what we need to be doing? We're supposed to know these things, right? True Jewel asked, who is Adonai and why do witches utilize him? I mean, Adonai actually goes back to the Hebrew pantheon, right? Adonai just means Lord or Master. It goes back to the Bible. It's a biblical term. It's a title or an attribute, Adonai Yahuwah. You'll see it depending on which translations of the Bible you're looking in. and what form of the translation in Hebrew or Aramaic you're looking at. Why witches use them, I don't know. I mean, depends on what witches you're talking about. I would have to find out what witches you're talking about and what form are they using them, because as far as witches or witchcraft, Adonai is a religious concept. I personally don't know any witches in witchcraft or sorcery that work with Adonai in that form, shape, or fashion. So really don't know the answer to that question, why witches would work with them. Robert Gordon II says, yeah, matter follows the mind. What we're interpreting as solid, of course, that's where we're going to go. So that becomes our reality. When I was talking about early, things that we are interpreting that are taking on a solid form or just a low vibrational frequency, that has now, we've interpreted that 90 or more % of the time of what reality is. And in essence, that's not reality. But through the programming, our mind has now perceiving it as that's reality, right? What else we got here? I know this was earlier, but again, the book, I know somebody, again, and I know Jenny typed it in. Thank you for typing it in, and thank you for helping with the moderation. Yeah, the book is Philip Coppens, again, for those that maybe came late. First name is spelled with one A, Philip. Philip, last name Coppens, Coppens. I know you can't see the book because of the filter. Coppens, and it's the Cannabis Revelation, Stargate of the Gods, and the Ark of Osiris. It is in the chat. It was typed in the chat. All right. So hopefully that helps. This is a very good question, and there's some layers to this. Robert Gordon II asked earlier, would you consider someone who is depressed a person with a weak mind that shouldn't try this work? I wouldn't say it makes them a weak person. I would tell them, though, they do need to proceed with caution. So this is a very intricate and complex question in regards to its delicate question. That's the better word I'm looking for. So I want to be clear on what I'm about to say. It is important to be in sound mind or body. Even if you're dealing with levels of depression, right, you should be very careful and selective of the work you do. So I would say for caution purposes, there's some work you need maybe to avoid, and that could be maybe some darker, more intense work. You should focus first and foremost if you are a person that's obviously dealing, and I'm not saying maybe you're just asking that question, Robin, or maybe you might be asking it for yourself or just asking it in general. So I'm just speaking in general, just to be clear. You probably want to work on the depression stuff and what you can do to get that in order first. But you could still do work in between as long as it's geared and in alignment to what you got going on in regards to that. So you do just need to be selective and careful. A good book that talks about dealing with depression, being in sound mind and sound body, and I always refer to him because he's a clinical psychologist. There's a good information in Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum's book, Dark Light Consciousness, and he gets into that. So I would just tell you, be selective and proceed with caution when you do that. All right. True Jules says, how can you protect yourself while doing a Doomy candle? Now, Doomy candles is a very system that, you can buy a lot of Doomy candles in like Botanicas and occult stores. Just for those that may not know what a Doomy candle is. And most of them are set up along the lines. It's usually a black candle. Some of them you can write the names. If you're doing destructive work against something or somebody, you can write their names. It's very effective if you know how to do it. As far as in relation to your question, protecting yourself, first and foremost, if you're always in alignment with the right, you don't need to protect yourself. If you're doing it out of spite, revenge, greed, or lust, you do need to protect yourself. Because if you understand how Doomy candles work and working with those type of spirits and working with that system, nothing is free. So when you're asking for something, and sometimes the spirits know you seriously need it, and there's something in return that must be given, you must be prepared to give it. So let me give you an example. Sometimes people do destructive magic, whether it's Doomy candle or sometimes a destructive work, And though it works and what they set out to do is accomplished, but then their life starts to go amok. They start to get sick. They start to get illnesses and diseases because there was something along the line they didn't understand how this works. That can happen if this is just done out of gluttonous, spiteful, or revengeful purposes. It's never free in regards to that. When you're doing it for outright protection or to destroy something because you were put in danger, there's nothing to protect yourself against. Because if you're a true sorcerer or magician, you will always come out victorious and on top. I know, and again, I've said this before over the years. First of all, one, you shouldn't have to, and I'm just speaking in general now, you shouldn't have to be doing all types of destructive work, especially against people all the time, because that's usually there's a telltale sign there's something wrong with you. I'm not saying to you that asked the question, I'm just speaking in general. But there are times where it is necessary because we all go through points or periods in our life where we have to do what we have to do. And now I'm fortunate to say I can count on one hand how many times I've had to resort to that. But I could tell you this, when I did, I had no remorse, regret, no hesitation, no sympathies or nothing. Because one thing I teach people, when you do that type of work, you should only do it if you're justified. I never instruct or teach anybody to do that out of just pure hate for somebody, greed, envy, revenge, for just personal, selfish bullshit. That's when it comes with something of cost that most people aren't ready to give. But when you're attacked and you have to go to whatever means you need to eliminate or destroy something, no regrets. You won't have to worry about anything that you need to be protected against. So in essence, what I'm saying is it depends on what you were doing the Doomy candle before. What you were doing it for is what I'm saying, right? Kieran said earlier, burning clean with a high flame. I tried to put the candle out twice and left covering on it for a while, but the flame will not go out. Feel that my petition has been granted. Yes, I would definitely take that as a sign, right? Burning clean. Who is it? Is it Raymond Buckland? I think it's Raymond Buckland. Years ago, he's had some occult classics on how to read candles. I think it's Raymond Buckland. I'm almost sure. Check out some of his book. As I said earlier, there's a lot of good books you could read on reading candles. We should be skilled in that art because, matter of fact, it's even inspired me maybe to revisit a class on that. I've done classes on Patreon. I've done some older classes here on it. Because candle magic is such a widely used practice on this path, we all use candles and work candle magic. That's something you really should be skilled at and really have good knowledge of because it's a practice that goes back and is rooted to many ancient systems going back eons, right? Candle is used from more modern systems to very ancient systems. So yes, I use it. It's one of my main practices. I love it. I've enjoyed doing it even in lighter systems years ago before I was on. Because candle magic, like I said, my first quote unquote occult book back in 93, 94 was Charmaine Day's Candle Magic. That was my first quote unquote occultish type of book. It's not a left-hand path book, but it's considered an occult book. And even as I said years ago, even back then when I was on these more conscious paths, like these comedic paths and these more mainstream conscious community paths, I would always be practicing that type of work on the side because back then, if you belonged to one of those conscious systems, it was like taboo to do stuff like that. That was considered like devil shit, but having my background and, family and background also in Santeria and shit like that, there was always that connection there to the occult and that type of esoteric spiritualism, this and that. So I would always find ways to get it in. But that was one of the first ritual practices I would say I started doing on the occult. Now, I used to have candle magic altars. I used to practice candle magic for everything back in the day. Money, protection, lust spells. I mean, you name it. I mean, that was when I was on a lesser frequency, right? When I was just doing that mainstream candles, magic, sorcery stuff. The last greatest candle magic ritual I did was for real estate property. back in 2016. And what I was trying to get accomplished was I was trying to close on 3 properties, trying to make money. And one of them, I was having an issue with the seller was being very tight-assed about the price. Long story short, there were some minor repairs that needed to be done. So I wanted to pay for the house what the price was. After putting the price of what the repairs would cost, and I would do the repairs myself. But the person wanted what the house was worth, but what it was appraised for was less, and I wasn't going past what it was appraised for. Long story short, crack them real quick. So now I'll do candle magic work for more productive things, long-term productive things, etc. But candle magic is a great practice when you really understand how to charge your candles, how know the right type of essential oils and blends to use with them, the correct type of incense, how to do petitions, how to work with parchments. All of that can be that's sorceress work. That's magic work. I love shit like that. And that's something that I do on a regular basis. Good stuff. All right. Came in late, but I heard you talk. Shadow. We're using 2 books now in the shadow work class that are excellent books to start shadow work. I always recommend journaling. Now we're this class, as I announced this past week to everybody on Patreon, this shadow work class is not going to stop anytime soon. Originally, I had it set for about 10 or 12, maybe. This thing's going to go on and on until the need to finish, which will probably be never, because I thought we would be done, but now it's an ongoing process that obviously that's never ended. There's 2 good books. One book I would recommend. Can't think of the names. Let me go grab them. I don't want to butcher the fucking name. Hold on. I know you can't see them because of the filter, so I'll give you the names. One is Into the Shadow by Mercy Morgana, Morgana, Mercy Morgana, a shadow work journal. And the other one is it's not just a journal, but it has a lot of good information in there. The other one is Shadow Work by Robert. Last name is Dahous, Dahous. It's going to ask some serious questions. Be prepared, because it asks shit like, do I lie to people about dumb shit and why? It's going to really question your character, your integrity, your behavior. It's also going to take you into the deep aspects of traumas that you might have picked up along the way from a young child to the present. You're going to have to face things if you've dealt with sexual abuse, physical abuse. Maybe you were bullied and picked on as a kid. Maybe it's going to take you to moments in your life that you need to tap into, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I always recommend people start shadow work. The beginning stages of shadow work is doing, like we started out in the shadow work class on Patreon. I always take my students through a 30-day journaling period, because those 30 days will help you understand. And all you do is focus on what's in the journal and being honest with yourself. So I would always suggest starting there. Now, there's plenty of other books out there. You just Google shadow work, a bunch of shit comes up. Find something that resonates along that lines. That's where you should start with your shadow work, right? But just a quick suggestion there, right? Swain Kiki said facts. My siblings can eat shellfish, but that shit will take me out. Yeah, you got to know your body when it comes to, if that was in relationship to earlier when we were talking about diet and food and what you're putting in yourself. Look, everything is with, moderation or discretion or caution when it comes to diet and food. Look, I love ice cream. I could eat ice cream every damn day, but common sense tells you ice cream is not good for you. So you limit. It don't mean you can't indulge in certain foods and enjoy certain delicacies, but the ones that are not healthy all the time in moderation. But then if there's some shit you just know you can't, stay away from it, period, right? Your body and your mind will tell you, right? Yeah, or Mika said earlier, Prince was doing the jewel way beforehand. Yeah. Look, these are guys, when you look at those type of musicians, you look at true musicians, the difference between musicians and flashes in the pan, the ones that write and create their own music, they stay around for eternity. Whether you look at some of the classic rock, I mean, the Rolling Stones are going to be doing concerts in wheelchairs and ventilators and respirators. The Rolling Stones, groups like the Rolling Stones, Aerosmith, some of these bands that have been around for an eternity, artists like Patti LaBelle, ones that write their own music and write their own songs, Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, Paul McCartney, Prince, right? As soon as they get to a point in their career where they can live off of their music catalog and their children's children can, powers that be swoop in and want that money. Right. That's why anybody will tell you in the music game what they've learned over the years, and the biggest mistake when you don't control the rights to your music. The reason why most of the producers, A&Rs, and these record companies don't want you to own the rights to your music, because they want to make money off it long after you're gone and out of the picture. So this is why you see, and you know, I'm a big music head, but this is why you see a lot of independent, a lot of new artists are going on. They're starting their own independent labels. They're streaming their music. They're going to different platforms on the internet so they can keep the rights and the control to their music, right? When you get caught up in those big companies and corporations like Columbia Records and shit like that, now you're in that corporate hierarchy where all the suit and ties, they want all the money, right? So you ain't making no money off of shit. You might make money in the moment. See, the difference with those people, they're thinking about making long-term money forever, but they sell the artist flash in the pan success for the moment. And back in the day, most of these artists would get so enamored with the money, they just go piss it all away on stupid shit. But the suit and ties are thinking long-term, like how they can keep making money off of this shit long after you're gone, right? So there's always money is behind that when it comes in regards to that. Trust me when I tell you. Yeah, Jenny too. Video games and gaming. A lot of people like Assassin's Creed. And again, I'm not a big gamer, so I don't really know the game, so I'm not going to pretend I do. But I do know, I can relate to what you're saying from what I've seen and heard. Well, Mika says, my son plays games, but he works and does programming and IT work. Well, there you go. That's different. We're not talking about the dude that smokes blunts all day and sits on the couch and plays PlayStation or Xbox from morning to night. Yeah. Peace to Joe Gardens. Yeah, Jenny, I agree with you. She says, I can't do it. I feel weird, almost guilty. Yeah, because managing your time is magic itself, and how you utilize your time is so critical and important, especially in this day and age and everything that's going on. That's the other problem I've said many times before over the years here on YouTube on this channel. Most people don't get results and are struggling in life because they waste their time, right? They come home, they just watch TV all day and night. You go to work, come home, eat shit, sleep, watch TV, go to work, come home, eat shit, sleep, watch TV, go to work, come home, and that's it. You've got to manage your time, and especially if you do have time. There's all different types of people in life. Some constant or limited on their time. And if you're a privileged person who does have a good amount of free time because you set yourself up like that, like myself, and I'm fortunate, I probably put minimal amount of time that I need to work, and it's a blessing, and I take advantage of that. Studying, bettering myself, experiencing things. All of those things are important. What's up, buddy? Where you going? Where you running to?
I'm going to my room.
Okay. But yes, manage your time effectively. Stop pissing away and wasting your time, right? What else we got? I'm glad, man. This tablet works out perfect keeping up with the chat instead of trying to go to split screen. This is what we will be doing. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, Lilith will help your self-worth. She is in the game. All the comments that Mika, Sperl, and Lily are saying is true. Yeah. Yeah, Jenny says, I can safely say I walk with a fire gem. I would hope so with that name, right? Got to be a connection with the Jinn. You wouldn't take that name if there wasn't. Young Finest makes a movie recommendation. I will check that out. I recommend watching Astral City, A Spiritual Journey. It's a movie. I will check into that. Never heard of it. Always like a good movie recommendation. Appreciate that. It's in Portuguese. I see Sperling. I would assume you could put captions on, right? And some of those foreign movies are the best, man. A lot of those, man, they got a lot of good movies on Netflix. A lot of those Asian movies, man, have some great special effects, man, and good stories. All right. Yes, Young Finest has confirmed that the movie is Portuguese. I saw the Spanish dub, though, with my mother since she only speaks Spanish. Not sure if there's an English dub version. I will look into it, though. So talks about the astral process. Interesting. Yeah, and again, I think I threw the 2 books up on the last YouTube, the Esoteric Hollywood Part 1 and 2. I always love the hidden and occult meanings of movies, and I think Jay Dyer, I always butcher his name. If you're a movie buff, he tackles a lot, 2 volumes from the classics, excuse me, to back in the day to a lot of the present ones and some of the underground ones. I mean, obviously you can't cover every fucking movie because there's so many goddamn movies out nowadays with the streaming shit. Yeah. Yeah, Mika, you can get most of those. Yeah, coenzyme Q10, just about all of them do come in liquid form. Now, if you find, I mean, it's changed. Like I take a lot of the capsules I take have no fillers, no preservatives. They're vegetarian capsules, no byproducts. And I'll be honest with you, the size has decreased. I don't take any of them that are I could say are really big. They're just normal size. There's a few I do take in a caplet form. But you can get majority of those pretty much all in liquid if you prefer the liquid. The only problem that I see with the liquid, money-wise, it can be depending on what you're taking. Money-wise, you don't get a lot of quantity for your money, and it tends to run a little bit more expensive. Now, if you do get it in a caplet form, research it. You tend to get a little more value. But there is a lot of bullshit ones out there in pill form that have a lot of preservatives and fillers. So just do your research if you do that. But yeah, but you can get majority of them in liquid form. Here's another recommendation too for a supplement by Young Finest. Magnesium glycinate also helps for sleep. Okay. Swain Kippy says did a working while dealing with an addiction and got my ass tore up. Yeah, that'll do it. But I commend you and give you credit for doing a working for that. And here's another thing I always stress big time. Your work should be created, devised on your needs, not your wants. As I said, I believe on the last video, a lot of people do ritual work and majority of their work is centered around their wants and they ignore their needs. Addressing an addiction is a need. That comes first precedent. So that's a good thing, right? Source Conduit says, how can one work with the lighter spirits like Osiris, Ra, Horus, or Isis, for instance, on this path? Very simple. A great book to show you how to do that. There's a book by Michael W. Ford. It's not his work. It's Charles Pace's work. It's called Necrominion, not Necronomicon, right? Not just one. Everybody confuses it. And we work with all of those spirits, right? Osiris or Usir, right? We in that book it breaks down the concept of Osiris being part of what we call the triad of light. Because remember, this path is not just about working with dark energy, dark spirits, and all this dark stuff all the time. Remember, a real black magician or a black adept is somebody that works with the right formula and balance and harmony of light and darkness. That's why in the practices of Egyptian Heka, you have two central key points. One is called the triad of light, and one is called the triad of darkness, which represents that the practicing sorcerer or magician needs aspects of both. So the triad of darkness is Set, is Anubis or Ampu, and Sekhmet. And we know what those three spirits represent and how powerful they are, and intense and warrior-like by nature, and what great transformation and change they bring. And then the triad of light is represented by Osiris or Usir, Heru or Horus, and Isis or Aset, right? Because of what they represent, right? Osiris has many deep hidden connections, right? We do work with both of them. Egyptian Heka, or working with the Egyptian deities or system, has been one of my favorite paths for years. And that's one of my key components. I have a whole altar dedicated to that I just do work specifically with that. And it includes all of the gods and goddesses of Egypt, not just the dark ones. I work with on that altar, the ones you mentioned. I work also with Geb. I have representations of Nut. I have representations of Hathor. Sobek, you name it, Ra, Ptah, all of them, because all of them represent higher states of consciousness. And then when you get into the Neteru or the Ogdoads, now you're dealing with creation. Now you're dealing with the emergence of how we came into existence. Because when you break down the pantheon of deities from the Neteru to the Ogdoad to the gods and goddesses, it's really explaining to you how this whole system or cycle or process of creation and growth is represented, right? And that's the beauty of working with the Egyptian path. There is a darker sorcerer side to it. When you get into the mysteries of Set and Sethnian magic, right? There is intensity to it. And the beauty of ancient Egypt, beauty of what it shows you is, which most people, again, don't really talk about when it comes to the Egyptian Book of the Dead, or really the coming forth by day. That's a book of spells, magic, and sorcery. That's why when you're reading the book, there are blank spaces where your names or sacred names are supposed to be inserted. It's a ritual book. Some present it as it's some form of a Bible, and it's not. Okay? So yes, you definitely can work with those spirits in regards, and you should, and I encourage it. You should. Yeah, I did a video back in 2016. It's one of, go back and just scroll down the arc. I did a whole video on CERD and the hydrogen colliders, and you know how they're trying to open these portholes and dimensions. I know everybody's talking about it now. Now again, they're messing with it for everything that we're talking about today, because they know that time is an illusion. They know there's space-time continuing. They know that there's gaps and portholes they can open to adjust this paradigm or false reality. So they're doing it for the same purpose and reason they do everything else, for more control, right? And everybody's been talking about it for the last couple of weeks, okay? They're messing with it again for the sole purpose of adjusting moments, adjusting times. They're doing it to also open up portholes and gateways as a means of time dimension and time travel, right? Now there's other theories out there that they're also doing it to transport beings from other galaxies. You know, again, do your research. You guys come to your own conclusion. I did a video on it. It's right here on the YouTube channel. I can't go into it because I'm on here now. It's one of, go scroll all the way. It's one of the first 10 or 15 videos I did. I can tell you that, because there was big buzz about it back in, I think that video I did was back in 2015. That's how long ago it was. I did a whole 2-3 hour video on that. So I'd recommend you go look at that. I touch on the whole Stephen Hawkins thing and what they were trying to accomplish and how they were using it as, you know, actually to bring other dimensions and realms and worlds together, how they were using it, again, space-time continuum, space travel, opening up portholes and gateways to time travel, There's a multitude of reasons why they're doing it. But I can tell you it's all centered again, and it always goes back to the same thing, for power and control. Right? These are the same people, right? These are the same people that promote the agenda of shit that they don't even believe in themselves, such as religion. That's the shit that kills me. The people that promote this shit, this is why I say, anytime these powers that be that want control, they have two genders they promote simultaneously, side by side. And they're always in opposition to each other, and it's for a reason. Because that's how you keep power and control, by confusing people. And until we rise up as gods and goddesses and make order out of the confusion, we become victim to it. But there's a multitude of reasons along that line. But if you get a chance, go here on the channel when you get some time. Again, it's like one of the first 15 or 20 videos I did. Just scroll all the way to the beginning. Go to the video section. You'll see it scroll down. The video is probably, because of the type of stuff I talk about, that video, I believe, has over 50 or 60,000 hits. It's probably my most hit video. You talk about shit that people want to hear. Sometimes some of this stuff is not mainstream. You just don't get as much hits. Because the shit we talk about here can be crazy to some people. All right? But good question. Yeah, and they say the fifth dimension, which Dr. Delbert Blair talked about all the time. Right? Dr. Delbert Blair, that was one of the main things he was one of the foundational things that he would teach, that we're approaching the fifth dimension, outside of person, place, and thing. Right? It's just a pure dimension of knowing. Right? This is why, again, it goes back to vibration and frequency. And what we're interpreting as a solid existence is not really real. It's not a real reality. We're interpreting as such. And that everything goes back into the mind. But it's also confirming what I was talking about death earlier, that consciousness still exists long after the body has given up its last breath. So yes, they're trying to shift what they're calling this existence into what Dr. Blair, Delbert Blair, used to talk about all the time, the fifth dimension. Yes, and in that video that I did, I talk about that on there too. So yeah. Alana says, hey now. I, self-Lord and Master. What about phonies or ill-begotten people wearing Santeria beads? Oh man, forget it. Man, that's so commonplace now. I call it their Mr. T starter kit beads. Let me tell you how you can spot a phony Santeria person, right? First of all, traditionally, and I'm speaking from a traditional sense, so let me make that clear. For the most part, at first, you get your main beads, your alekes, right? Or your collars, as they say it, which is Alegua, Obatala, Yemaya, Oshun, Shango, right? Then you see people when you start seeing people mixing beads, you start seeing them wearing Palo beads, and they got Olaroon, and they got Aganyu, and all these other different beads, and they're wearing like, some of it is such overkill. And then here's a way you can detect. Certain houses have certain color patterns that they use, right? So you'll see if a person has a pattern with their alekes or collars, it's usually consistent throughout, regardless of whatever orishi it's for. When you see a person wearing different, just complete off the wall, there's no consistency in the pattern of how the color of their beads are for each orishi, that's just somebody that went and bought beads and just is wearing them just to be wearing them. That's a telltale sign. If you've been initiated and you belong to a house of Ifa or Santeria, it's very easy for you to spot somebody that's phony and full of shit. Very, very easy. You can tell they got bootleg collars. You can tell they weren't given the correct way. First and foremost, here's the other thing. One thing traditionally most houses will tell you, and most of your madrina, your padrino, or your santera will tell you, like in my house, you weren't allowed to wear them outside your shirt. You always had to wear them on the inside, right? It's become, and what's the reason for that? And again, I want to make this clear. I'm speaking from a traditional sense. The reason for it is nobody should ever touch your beads. There's energy attached to them. So You don't want nobody ever coming up, touching your beads. You don't ever want it to be exposed to certain energy that can disrupt what those beads were charged with ritualistically, etc. So in my house, we always had to wear them under our shirt. And my godmother ever saw you wearing them outside, she would always tell you to tuck them in. That's another telltale sign. So when you see the other ones wearing them, most houses will tell you that. That's most houses. So when you see somebody that wants to wear a gang of them and they always have them hanging outside, that's because they want you to see the shit. And they want you to go, oh, that person's so deep. Look at all the elekes they have on. Who gives a fuck? To me, again, it's like the person that has to put 1 million titles in front of their name because they want you to know they're special and important. That don't mean you know shit. Just because you carry a title and you're wearing a Mr. T starter kit around your neck, it doesn't mean you know shit. Because I've talked to many of them. They're a dime a dozen. They don't know shit. So I'm talking about the phony ones that you're talking about. So it's very easy to spot a phony one. And then not only that, have a basic conversation with them. Ask them. I always ask them, are you a full initiated Orishi or Aborishi? They don't even know what that is. Aborishi is somebody that just received, say, their Elekes and their warriors, but they didn't get crowned or they didn't get fully initiated. Or I say, well, who governs the head of the body? And they don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about. Or you ask them, how did you ever have your guardian angel or your Orishi that rules your head pulled? And they'll go, no, or they'll go, yeah, and I'll say, how was it done? My godmother did it. No, that Babalawo has to do it. And it should be 3 Babalawos there. And it should be done with the Ifa tray. So you can just ask simple questions. You could tell. You could tell somebody, it's the same thing with masonry and other paths. You could just tell by somebody who reads just the books and they know a little something about it. And then you can tell when you're talking to a person who's been initiated. It's 2 different things. Easy, very easy. Well, anyway, for me, it's very easy to detect. Very easy. JG, no. Tier 3. Tier 3 is, see, on Tier 3, there's ongoing series of classes. They're separated. So this is a question in regard to the Patreon page. So if you're in Tier 3, it gives you access to all the series of the classes. So there's like I say, there's shadow work classes, and they're 8. They're all labeled, and they all describe what they deal with. There's ongoing classes in there for Kemetic or ancient Egyptian vampirism, ongoing. There's ongoing classes in there for African witchcraft and sorcery. We're up to 8 classes on that. There's ongoing classes on Sith sorcery and alchemy. We're up to class 3 in that. Norseman. So all the classes are grouped in series, each separated, all under Tier 3. And that's why I encourage people, if you do sign up for Patreon, sign up for Tier 3. Patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. You see the screen. It's been going on the bottom of the screen. It's in part of the messages on the bottom of the screen in the video. And if you're a Tier 3 member, you get 3 classes a month and you get 1 ritual. So if you're a Tier 3 member, I rotate the series to keep up with them. So by becoming a Tier 3 member, you'll be able to participate in all 3 classes every month and the ritual. And if you can't get there live, that's okay because everything is archived. So obviously everybody has different work schedules. Everybody has different things going on in their life. And everybody lives in different time zones. So it's hard to come up with a time and a day that works for everybody. I got members and students, which is a blessing, from all over the world. I got students on both coasts in the United States. Believe it or not, I got students in the Netherlands. I got students in Israel. I got 3 students in Africa. I got a couple of students out of the UK and England. I got 1 student from Germany. So I'm not just getting students inside the United States. I've got students and members signing up for Patreon and the mentorship program from all over the world. And it's a beautiful thing to show how this path translates. It's a worldwide thing. So it's a great thing. So that's why everything is archived, because I know whether you live in another part of the country or on a different coast, I have to do everything in Eastern time because I'm in the Eastern time zone. So I try to do all the live classes on a Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. But again, if you can't get there for the Saturday classes, and it's great. We have a great time and we get a lot done. But the classes are always on Saturday at 3 o'clock. And the rituals are always the last Friday of the month. 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And again, if you can't get there live, you can watch the recording. And also you get access to all the stuff in the archive before you even join. So it's not like when you come in at tier 3, you're only getting from tier 3 moving forward. No, you get all the stuff on tier 3 going back to the first day the channel began. And I can tell you there's hundreds of shit on there. And it's if you see it, and not tooting my own horn, but it's well worth it. A lot of work on there, a lot of ritual stuff. If you didn't know what to do before, then you would never know what to do after that. So there's stuff on there from shadow work. I show you, I have an altar series on there. I show you how to set up altars, show you how to do ritual work. There's meditation work on it. I mean, you name it. That's what the channel is for. That's what that tier is for, right? Specifically for personalized work. So yeah, I would encourage you to check that out, tier 3. I would encourage everybody to check that out, tier 3. And again, I just want to throw out there again, I have opened up back. Anybody is welcome on our Friday once a month rituals. If you want to come live and participate with us, just reach out to me and contact me. We'll be more than happy to have some visitors and some guests, right? All right, what else we have? Jenny says, I'm a magician. I'm sorry, not magician. I am a musician, excuse me. You can be half a short artist, but if the songs are good, you're gold. And that's true. Yeah, Asian horror movies. A lot of those movies are good. All right, I'm going to speed it up a little bit, see if there's any questions. I'm going to bypass some of the comments. All right, so we can get to some of the questions, if any more. Yeah, Mika, I would definitely encourage reading the Book of the Dead. I created a ritual a few years ago. We did it. One of the first rituals we did down here back in early 2016 when we started doing these monthly rituals. It's called the Black Mass of Set. And I incorporated 2 spells from the Book of the Dead in that ritual. It's a powerful book when you understand it. Yeah, I've seen that movie, Jin, made in 2013. That's a good movie. Yeah, Philip Hill, there definitely is a connection with that. The powers that be, a manifestation of Apothos, the devouring serpent, right? But they're trying to use that form of Apothos to devour and control everything, right? So they're preying upon us like they preyed upon Ra in that story. But when we rise up and become like Set, then we can make order and control that chaos to the point where we make order out of it for ourselves first, right? So I definitely think there's a connection there. Most definitely. That is it. I definitely see it. All right. Yeah. I'm telling you, the Mr. T Santeria kit, Jenny, is big. You see all these, I mean, look, I see it, shit, out here, down here. Being in South Florida, as you know, Ifa and / Santeria is huge down here because there's a large Haitian community of Voudon and Santeria and Ifa. There's a large Cuban, Puerto Rican, Dominican, Latino community. But then a lot of the Dominicans practice 21 divisions and Puerto Rican Sanse. So there's a lot of different variations of it too. But man, you see some shit down here, man. I mean, even in New York, growing up my whole life in New York, obviously the Ifa Santeria community is huge in New York. But yeah, you see these poses, man. You know, they got on, I call it the Mr. T Starter Conscious Kit. You know, I like the ones that you see wearing everything from all this guy. They got so much shit around their neck, you don't even know what the fuck it is, right? Look, to each his own. I'm just going to call it for what it is. I can see through the bullshit vibe. I mean, it's not being judgmental. I'm not saying you can't wear all that. I am questioning the fact some of these motherfuckers I see, I'm like, damn, is it really? Do we need to be wearing 20, 30 Eleques? Like, really? Is that shit necessary? It's just me. It's personal. Nobody take offense to it. So if you're wearing a Mr. T starter kit, don't email me all pissed off, okay? I just think I'm going to wind up ignoring that shit. All right, we're almost at the bottom here. I think we're going to wrap it up in a minute or two. Couple more questions here. I'm going to focus on the questions. I Self-Lord and Master, you're welcome. Every time I see that, reminds me of my 5% lessons. Every time I see it. Logan Scott, is there any tips or exercises you can recommend for how we can get better at visualization during meditation? like the Flaming Hands and the Draconian Ritual book. Yes, here's a very simple exercise. I've mentioned this a few times over the years. Try taking objects, capturing objects. Now, for an example, a simple one to use always is just a simple candle, a lighted flame of a candle. You can really do this with any object, because really to enhance those skills, whether it's meditation or visualization, your focus and concentration skills need to be sharp. That's usually why people struggle, because they haven't practiced or they haven't sharpened their skills of focus and concentration. So try this, and the focus and the purpose of this, of the focus and concentration, is to block everything else out, right? So what you simply want to do is, for an example, I'll use the example with a candle. Place one simple candle in front of you, right? And try to do this and not too much light in the room. Basically the candle, maybe if you need a little bit of light. So what you want to do is stare and focus on the lit candle for a while. Whatever, a couple of minutes, 15, 20, longer, whatever you feel. After you've stared and gazed upon that image, capture the image in your mind's eye and close your eyes. And stay as long as you can with your eyes closed with that captured image in your mind. See how long you can do it. You might struggle at first. You might do it the first time for a few minutes, but it'll get longer and longer. And concentration is about being able to have a central focus point, but blocking everything else out. It's a very, very simple concept, but a little harder to do. So try focusing on objects, right? That would be good. So try something like that. I thought I saw something in here about breath control. Maybe I skipped it by accident. I thought somebody was asking about a good book for breathing exercises. Well, if they did and I passed it, I always recommend Science of Breath by Yogi Rag Chamraka. Science of Breath. Excellent book for breathing and some meditation exercises. We use that in the Kundalini Yoga and meditation class. Okay. I saw two AOs in my godparents' botanic, and they had their beads all out and were dressed basically like prostitutes in white. I was like, what house allowed that? Exactly. To my knowledge, and again, I've been out of the game for so long, but I know when I came up, when I say I've been out of the game for so long, I gave up the traditional path probably back in 04, 05, maybe late 05, the latest. But I came from a very traditional house, a very disciplined house. And as I've said before, I still have a good relationship with my godmother, even though she may not be in full agreement of where I'm at now, but she respects me. I respect her. But I can tell you I was fortunate in regards to that. But it was a very traditional house. It was a very disciplined house. And you couldn't do shit like that, what you described. And if she saw stuff like that, she would address it. And if you want, and when most people got to understand, when you belong to a house, and this is why it's tough to be on this path and follow a full traditional path, because it's not an option. You have to follow the rules of the house. It's not an option. You can't do as you please. I mean, I look back on it now. I mean, some of the shit was ridiculous. I could never do it where I'm at now and where I'm at in my growth. I could never go back to doing anything traditional like that. I would forget it. I'd be so rebellious and I just couldn't do it. I understood at the point, and I knew it was part of the journey and part of my growth. But when it came to shit like that, no, you couldn't, you know, it was very traditional. You couldn't. And we always had to have our beads inside our shirt. We never wore them outside our shirt. Yeah. And my godmother is an old school Puerto Rican from New York, but now down here in Miami. So she's got the New York and Miami, effect. So combine both of them. Yeah, and it's crazy. And matter of fact, her brother, Javier, is my godfather in Palo. And he's the one that actually scratched or initiated me or went through my work with him in Palo. And they're brother and sister. So I can tell you, yes, very, very, very traditional and disciplined. Okay. So, yeah, Logan, so if you're struggling to hold the image, you got to just stay at it. I wish there was a clear-cut answer. It's going to take just staying consistent. It might take longer. You just got to keep doing it. Stay at it. Now, what I also would ask you to put into check part of what could be struggling with your focus and concentration. How is your diet? Do you have any health issues that could be interfering with that? Because diet, or do you have any sleep disorders? Are you struggling? Do you have any sleep deprivation? Are you getting lack of sleep? All of those things too need to be looked at and addressed. Exercising, right? What kind of shape are you in? Are you getting proper exercise as far as for circulation, blood flow? Those might be other things you might want to check in addition to that, because as I said earlier, all of those things can affect your focus and your concentration. Right. All right, so what else we got? I said, Master, are there repercussions for that phony wearing Santeria beads? Well, if they haven't been, here's the thing. If the work hasn't been done on them, if they haven't been prepared in the proper amrios, they haven't been charged, the individual didn't take the initiation bath, and they weren't done and presented correctly, because a priest or a priestess or a madrina or a padrino or a santera or a santera, whatever title you want to call, goes through a whole process of preparing them with certain herbs, different amieros, different things go into making and charging those beads. So one, if they just some store-bought shit, there's nothing to them in regards spiritually. It can bring some negative unwanted attention, because they might come across somebody who might question them, and it could bring some unwanted static. So yes, it can, on a multitude of levels. It's just like you find people out here sometimes faking the funk with masonry, wearing Masonic symbols, and then when they get questioned on some of the degrees and they don't know the responses and answers, they get exposed. So outside of the difference, you can be exposed by somebody coming up to you, questioning you, but from a spiritual or energy perspective, if you got them from somebody who didn't know what they were doing, yes, there could be spiritual repercussions, negative energy attached to them. Now, you can also, because I show people now, you can also charge them yourself with your own energy. And I show people how to do that. There's a very non-traditional, more esoterical, spiritual way you can work with them, but I still show people how to do it without trying to come off as wearing a Mr. T starter kit, right? So yes, there are repercussions you need to be aware of that can happen. You could be exposed for being a phony. You could be confronted by someone and you're going to look like a fool because you don't know what you're talking about. And there could be spiritual repercussions. Maybe some phony you got them from, and it's carrying a bunch of crazy ass energy and you're wearing it. Or you're wearing something that has no spiritual power to it. So it could be any of those things, most definitely. Grimacy asks, how important is vampiric magic, and is there any Orishi that resonates with it? Well, vampiric magic, just like any other path, is as important as you feel it is a need to you, right? Because I know people that don't even mess with vampiric spirituality at all. And then there's some people it's a very integral part of their path, just like anything else. So how important it is going to be determined based on you, your connection with it, and your need for it, or what you see as your need for it. Now, as far as the synchronization with other Orishis, we can look across the board in many paths. Any deity that deals with absorption or has that vampiric energy to it. So you can look for an example, Oya. You can look at very strong connection there because of what she represents and her intensity. So you can synchronize a lot of Orishis, or even in other paths or systems that have a vampiric type of energy or connection. Formally, there's not really nothing out there that dictates or says that. I think you have to be the individual, the practitioner that can connect the synchronization of those energies. But that's where you can approach that, right? Yeah, New York and Miami is crazy. All right, questions? Any other questions? Yes, it is. It's but the wordplay. One thing always looked unique, and I've done a couple classes here on the 120 of the of the 5% Nation. But one thing I give Father Allah, when I look at it now from an occult and esoterical perspective, it was a language that spoke on its own. It was wordplay, But when you look at the alphabets, when you look at the supreme alphabets, when you look at the mathematics, when you look at the 1 to 10, the 1 to 40, when you look at all the degrees, the 120 is a universal language in itself. It's a spiritual language. And there's a synchronization with it from top to bottom. When you're taking the days of the month and you're correlating it to the alphabet and the math, it all lines up, and there's no way that that's a coincidence, regardless of other people's perspective on it. But when you look at the lessons, the 120 degrees, there's a science behind that, man. And I think Father Allah, excuse me, as I said in those videos, was tapped into some shit. He really was. He was tapped into some serious shit. He was on some next level shit when I look at it now. Again. Okay, what else we got? Yeah, you will see that Jin Jinny in certain Ifa and Santeria houses. And that's one thing that turned me off. Just like everything else, this competition, man. There's houses, there's people within the houses that war with each other for power. It's just like anything else. And then there's like when you're in an area like New York and Miami, where there's so many Santeros and Santeras and Babalawos and practitioners, there's so many houses, like in New York, from borough to borough, it's crazy. Then you got other houses hating on other houses, this one accusing this one of doing, oh, they don't do that right over there. Oh, they don't know what they're doing there. Oh, their lineage is not, it's not authentic. You got that, and then you're dealing with the in-house bullshit. I got tired of that shit. There's a lot of politics in games, no doubt. A lot of politics in games. You got a Masonic belt buckle. That's all right. All right. All right. I think that's it. We at the end of the line. I think we did enough. I'm going to close it out. I appreciate it again. You see the announcements going on the bottom. If you need to read me for a reading or a consultation, Journey to the Black Adept Conference, 5th annual. We're ready, signing people up, getting that ready to go. If you're interested, you see the email, you can hit me up. Again, I would encourage everybody to check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. I want to thank all you guys that were able to stay with us here for damn near about 3 hours and 16 minutes. I didn't think it was going to be that long. I appreciate you guys' support over the years. I enjoy talking with you guys. Until next time, you guys be safe. Take care of yourselves. Put in the work. Infernal blessings to all. And we will talk soon. Peace out. All right. We'll say peace to you guys on Instagram.